that you're there for me when times get hard. Said I know, if I leave your way, you are not far. You're the answer to my problems, to my worries, to my fears. All my fears. You will answer. You will answer. Will answer. Will answer when I call. When I call. When I call. As long as I live your way. If I keep your time. Live your way. You will answer. And believe in Yahusha. As long as I live your way, as long as I always answer my call when I'm going through. And I know that you're there for me when times get hard. Yahuah knows, I know, if I leave your way, you are not far. You're the answer to my problems, you hear my cry, to my worries, to my fears. You will answer, will answer, he's always there, will answer when I call, when I call, when I call.
Always remember Psalm 20, verse 4 through 9. He does give you according to your heart and fill all your plans. We sing our deliverance in the name of our Elohim. We set up a banner, Yahuah, till all your requests. Now I know that Yahuah shall face his anointing. He answers him from his set apart showing with the saving right of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we remember the name of Yahuah our Elohim. They have bowed down and fallen, but we have risen and are established. Save Yahuah, let the Sovereign answer us in the day we call.
What if you could take your business anywhere?
Man, it's looking bad here. When this happened, Yahusha, when you coming back? How'd it get so bad? Delusional freedom is leaving and it's getting away so fast. Conclusions creeping up on this place and it's coming in with a blast. How we become so despicable, a bunch of selfish individuals. At best we just miserable brats, and it makes me sad. What kind of place think it's okay to take kids from their dad? Still to the point we get to the bad, it's sick where we at. This world's fairly contrary, opposite and answer them or what Yahuah handed them. They traveling this planet and they damaging the land and painting the skies with cancer and not giving us a chance to win. Yahuah called, I answered him, I'm fearing him. Hold up now and declaring his good news to those that's hearing him. He's seeing them, the wicked he's revealing them. The sickness he is healing them. Yes, he is very real. When you believe you will hear him. He's calling those that seeking him. With all they bleeding in, hearing and receiving him. In true love and believing him. I'm loving him. Lord his name, Yahuah. He'll draw you to Yahuah. Call his name, call his name, call his name. Please come, Yahusha, we need you. Please come and get your people. We all but just a remnant that's strengthened by what you speak to us. We need you leading us, keep feeding us, keep leading us and teaching us, increasing us until the day we be with you. It's dark folks here ain't seeing ya. Those think that they believe in ya. Don't see that they deceiving, just continue with that heat stuff. But But I'ma keep speaking cause there's only just one truth. All those doctrines, denominations abroad, so far from you. You knew it's all from the womb. I'll seek you until the tomb, hoping that you coming soon. The one reason ain't doom and gloom, but in this darkness we need your light. To guide our path and be our light. Guide my words and what I write, so we don't proper 11-9. Yahuah, go ahead and use me. Whatever your plan, include me. There's nothing I'd rather be doing. There's nothing else worth pursuing. I'll be seeking your face all the way until the day I'm in your presence. When the heavens come to this place and you stay, I pray. God is name, Yahuah, will draw you to Yahusha. Call his name, call his name, call his name. Call on his name, Yahuah.
Yahuah, I want to say shalom to you all, Mashbaka. It is great to be with you today. We give Yahuah praise, honor, and esteem for yet another opportunity to be assembled in his name. Wonderful to see each and every one of you. I know the question was asked by our Akut Vanessa on YouTube concerning one of the songs. I'm not sure which one it was, Akut, that you were asking about, and so I'm just gonna name the songs that was played this morning. We played 3 songs. The first one was from Aki Yahunathan, Answer, and the title of the song is Answer, featuring Nariyahu, and all of these songs can be found on YouTube. The second song was from Aki Malakyahu, and the title of that song is Yahukanan 44, was it? I believe it is. I'll tell you exactly here in a second. Bear with me just for a second while I get back to it. Where did I go? Where did it go? Bear with me while I find. Yes, Yahukanan 644. Yeah, Yahukanan 644. I meant to say. And the third song is Ayala in Gedeshet, they say. And what it's an encouragement to keep on moving forward, and so that's Ayala, Ayala, in Gedeshet. I'm sorry that they have the Yiddish in there, and again it's to move. Basically the song is an encouragement to keep on moving, keep on pressing forward in Yahuah. All right, so those were the 3 songs. It is my hope that you find them to be a baraka to you today. Well, we give Yahuah praise, honor, and esteem once again for this opportunity. We're going to go ahead and open up in prayer, family. Have a very, I believe, a very important and interesting study today. Coming again, we're in the book of Mashali, the book of Proverbs, chapter 31. We have been in there for our past couple of studies, and so we're going to be continuing in the book of Proverbs chapter 31. But today we're going into the what they call the virtuous woman text, right? And so I've titled our study today, A Good Woman is Hard to Find. Oftentimes you hear it said that a good man is hard to find, but how about the fact that a good woman is truly hard to find? And so we're going to look at the life of this very good woman here in the book of Proverbs, and we're going to examine ourselves against her, right? We're going to let her be our measuring stick today. I'm speaking about both from the perspective of the woman and from the man. As a husband, what is my role in the household? And as a woman, what is your role in the household? What is your role in the family? What is your role in the community? What is your role in society? Okay, so we're going to critique ourselves against this woman today, against her life and the way that she carried herself, and how the way that she carried herself impacted everything and everyone around her, you see. And so the title of our study today is A Good Woman is Hard to Find. We're also going to be going to the book of Sirach, because while we look at the life of a good woman, we also want to see what a bad woman looks like. Okay, and so we're going to be going to the book of Sirach also for a little bit. Okay, so we're going to open up in prayer, Mashpaka. Ask Yahuah to guide us, ask him to barak this time, ask him to lead us and help us not to lean on our own understanding, but truly to acknowledge him in all our ways. And truly may Yahuah be honored and esteemed in all that we say and in all that we do, today. Halal hu Yahuah. So without further ado, Mashpaka, let us turn our faces toward the set apart place of Yahuah as we ask for his favor today. Halal hu Yah. Praises to Yahuah. Abba Yahuah, we barak you. And we say Tuda Yahuah for yet another opportunity to come before you, to be seated in your presence, and to look to you for guidance, for wisdom. Father, we ask you for strength. Yahuah, we live in a world and a time that is filled with chaos, Father, filled with confusion, filled with doubt. Yahuwah, oftentimes we see things and we come across things that cause us to be doubtful. Yahuwah, sometimes even to question what we read and what we hear concerning you. It is that time that we live in where, you know, so much poison has been spread and so much have been done, and there's so much contamination that for us to continue as if there is not confusion, for us to continue as if there is not questions, for us to continue as if there are no doubts, then we would be truly hypocrites. And so, Yahuwah, the fact is that your people have questions. Your people have doubts. Your people question what is and what if. And so we ask for you to give us the answers. We ask for you to make it clear, because I know certainly that I don't have all the answers, Yahuwah. I don't have all the answers. And who knows if what answers I think I have, I do have. And so I know that I need you. We need you. Help us not to lean on our own understanding, but in all our ways, help us to acknowledge you. And may you, Yahuwah, direct our path. Give us strength in this time, in these dark hours. Give us strength, Yahuwah, even as we see people and organizations as they rise up against us once again, seeking to destroy us. Yahuwah, they have been brainwashed and miseducated concerning your people. And even when we are no threat to them, yet they see us as a threat. But then again, maybe it is that they know what we don't know. Maybe it is that they see what we don't see, because in your eyes we are a great people. But Father, we only see ourselves as grasshoppers. Much like when you sent your servant, when you instructed your servant to send the spies into the land, to spy out the land, and they came back and their report was that we are unable to take the land because there are giants in the land, and we are but grasshoppers in their eyes. Yahuwah, we do suffer from that complex where we see ourselves as grasshoppers. But I pray, Yahuwah, that you would cause us to see our true worth, cause us to see the greatness that you have put in us. Help us to walk in that way. Help us to walk in confidence, not in pridefulness, but in true confidence, knowing who our Father is, knowing who our Creator is. Help us to be a people who are substantive. Help us to be a people who are productive. Help us to be a people who are thoughtful. Help us to be a people who teach, who seek to learn, and who teach and instruct our children according to your way. Help us, I pray, Yahuwah. Barak us this day. Strengthen us and keep us. Barak our households, our families, our wives, our children. Barak them, we pray today. Barak husbands. Help us to be the head of the house that you intend for us to be, Yahuwah. Do this, we pray. Barak your word as it goes forward in Yahuwah. In your great name. Aman. Hallelujah. Praise Yahuwah. Hallelujah. Praises to Yahuwah. Once again, family, I want to say shalom to each and every one of you all on this day, the day that Yahuwah has made. This is indeed one of the days he has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. Hallelujah. Delighted to see you all, family. Want to begin by saying shalom to our mashpaka, those joining us via telephone, those joining us via tablets. There are a couple devices on here that don't have a name attached. I just want to say shalom to you. Also want to greet Mayaki and is mashpaka, Mayaki Matatyahu. It is wonderful to see you, Aki. Mayaki warrior Matatyahu. Also want to say shalom to Akut Telesia. It is wonderful to see you, Akut. And also to our Akut Mia Farley. I want to say shalom to you, Akut, and to my Akut Mahalia. A delight to see you also, my Akut. To my Akut Laneshaya. Great to see you, Akut. Shalom to you. Shalom to the Shalom to the unborn. I want to say shalom also to my Akut Keith and to Akut Joan. Want to say shalom to Akut Kazakaya and to Aki Yahukanan, her son, her ban. And I also want to say shalom to Aki Adi Al, and also want to say shalom to my Akut Adelaide. Wonderful to see you, family. And to my Akut Sharia, say shalom. Shalom to you, Mashpaka. It is indeed a baraka to be here, and indeed a baraka to see each and every one of you today. Want to say shalom also to our family who may be listening to us via Facebook Live. Shalom to you, family. And also want to turn my attention here for a moment to Tuda Akut Lanesha. Yeah, and also want to turn my attention to YouTube here for a moment and greet the family on YouTube. Family, it is indeed wonderful to see each and every one of you, those whose names are represented and those who are not represented. Want to say shalom to Akut Cheryl Yadadad. Shalom to you, Akut. Also to my Akut Angela. It is wonderful to see you as always, Akut. Vanessa Yahuah child. I say shalom to you. To my Akut Sharia, Reign Justice Yahuah. I want to say shalom to you, Akut. And also, and Aki Yahakab. I greet also to Akut Palaya, our youth. Yashar Allah, say shalom to you, Akut, and also to Aki Maris. It's great to see you, Aki. I want to say shalom to you. To my Akut G Levia, I want to say shalom to you. It is wonderful to see you, Akut. Indeed, it is. And so, family, greetings to you all in Yahuwah's great name today. It is my hope that these greetings find you basking in Yahuwah Shalom. Okay, so we are getting ready to go. We're going to go into our text here. I also want to just say very quickly before we go to our study, I want to say very quickly too that family, for those who have missed our last couple Rob meetings, I am in the process of refunding deposits that were deposited to Rob, and I had asked in our last meeting if you would just send me an email. The main reason is so that I know that when I make the returns that I'm sending them to the right email address. That's important. The reason why I'm asking this again is because 3 times now I've only heard from one person, but nonetheless I've returned more to the majority of persons so far, but I've only heard from one person. But what happened in 3 instances, I sent the funds to the wrong email addresses. For one reason or another, your email, you might have changed your email address with PayPal, or it was a different PayPal account. Now you're using a different account. So I accidentally sent it to different email addresses, which was, I was able to cancel the transactions and resend them once we realized what was going on. But so I'd asked individuals if you would send me an email. You could send it to repairersob@gmail.com, or you could send it to wordoflife55@yahoo.com. Some people have said to me, you know what, I just want to donate my deposit to the regular Haykal account, which is fine too. And again, if you send that email, let me know what it is you want to do. If you would like to receive your deposits back, by all means, let me know the correct email address to send it to. That's the most important reason, because I'd started just sending them anyway because I didn't receive the emails. I just started sending the deposits back, but I don't want to send it to the wrong email address. And in some cases, in the 3 instances so far, it wasn't an issue because nobody else had that email address, but imagine if I send it to an email address that you no longer use, but somebody else have that email address. and realize that oh, I just received a
Baraka.
yeah,
Yahuah.
you know, so just want to make sure just want to make sure that that the you know, Aki, I did not see your email, but to that confirms, for example, with Akimat at Yahoo, that confirms that's, I do still have that email, and that confirms that, so I appreciate that, Aki. All right, so I just want to let the family make you aware of that. Okay. All right, and also just as a heads up again to the family too, that as I return these deposits, that what I'm doing is the cost that we incurred with setting up Rob, as far as legal fees and business registration fees, what I did was I split that among the members, and what that comes to is $24, and so that's deducted from whatever you deposited. And in the cases, what I did really with some deposits that were $100 or less, I didn't bother to deduct that $24 from it, and I'll just use some funds from the other account to cover that. I didn't want to, that was too steep of an amount to take out of somebody's deposit that who only deposited maybe was only able to deposit say $100 or less, and so I didn't deduct that $24 from deposits $100 or less. So but if you could send that information, then that would be helpful. Okay. All right. Well, with that said, we're gonna get ready to get into our study for today. And again, it is my prayer, it is my hope that this study will be, you'll find it to be a baraka to you. Let me go back. I think we have more family who came in while I was talking on Fuse. I want to say shalom to Akujina. Who else? I don't know. It don't seem as if there's anyone else that I'd missed. Keith, shalom to you, Aki. And I think, Aki Damon, shalom to you, Aki. All right. So I think we covered the bases. All right. All right. So today, family, as I mentioned, our study is. The title of our study today is "A Good Woman is Hard to Find." A good woman is hard to find, and that is indeed so true. A good woman is hard to find. As I said before, you oftentimes hear about a good man being hard to find, but how many times do you hear the truth that a good woman is hard to find? And it is certainly true. A good woman is indeed hard to find, and so that's really the basis of the writing there when we get to that point. So we have covered a few other things from the book of Proverbs chapter 31. We have covered a few other subjects, right? We talked about not giving your strength away, and how we can give our strength away. We talked about the importance of as mothers leaving a lasting legacy. What kind of legacy, what kind of impression are you making on your children? You know, the role of a father in a household is very important, certainly. The role of a father is very important, but because there have been so many absentee fathers, and for the most part the women are usually the only ones present, because of the chronic absenteeism of fathers, then the importance of women in the household, in the family, have become somewhat distorted and even overlooked, and even maybe minimized in some ways, because now she's forced to act in other roles, and so she is spread so thin that she can't fulfill her job, right, in the family the way that it was intended for her to fulfill it. And so now she finds herself not just being the mother, but she finds herself being everything and everybody to the family. And as a result, she becomes you know how they have this saying that goes, there's a saying, jack of all trades but master of none. You see, she become a jack of all trade, but she masters none, right? And that's as a result of being spread so thin, being spread so much, where she has to become everything for everybody. And so she functions in every role, but yet she's unable to master any particular one because of all of the demands on her. All right, so now family, we're going to be talking about the expectation, Yahuah's expectation from the woman, right? And we can't talk about it without reflecting on the man also, because too oftentimes the standards for a woman seem to be set higher than that for a man, right? The standards, the expectations from a woman seem to be set higher than that of a man. In other words, in our society, in society as a whole, people expect for the woman to act more everything, whereas the man can get away with everything just about. And that's what leads to, even when you look at what's going on in the news on a daily basis today, where every day just about, or every other day, you see somebody else coming forward accusing some man, some woman or women coming forward accusing a man of sexual harassment or sexual assault of some kind, because quite frankly, the society in which we live, even though we like to criticize other countries, right? Even though America like to criticize other countries, they like to talk about Muslims and Muslim countries and how the women are being mistreated and ill-treated and disrespected and all of this stuff. Yet the very country that seemed to put itself on a pedestal and talk about how other countries and other cultures don't respect their women, what we have always known is that women are not respected in this country. Now, women aren't respected, but especially if you are a black woman or a minority, you are certainly not respected. And you have not a voice. You have no voice in this society. You are made to think you have a voice, but really you have no voice, because there are many women, some of them have not even come forward, but they have been harassed, they have been molested, they have been assaulted, and yet they fear to come forward because of in fear of retribution for them speaking up. And that's what has been happening for the longest time, but now some women have gained the courage to come forward and to speak up. And so you see, day after day, you have these accusations against all these different people, right? Okay, so we have a different standard in this society. I'm talking about from a societal perspective. We have a different set of standards for women than we do for men. They'll tell you that you can't do what the man does and still be a lady, is what this society will say. I believe everybody is just about familiar with that saying. You can't do what the man do and still be a lady, but yet the man can do whatever he wants to do and still be considered to be a man. And the fact of the matter is, in particularly if you are a white man, that's the nature of the society in which we live. Well, we're gonna let Yahuah's word deal with the way things ought to be. And Yahuah's word is not to this society. Yahuah's word is to his people. Okay, Yahuah's word is not to this society. Yahuah's word is to his people. So I'm not here today to critique American society. I will only use it as an example of what not to be, you see. But I'm not here to critique it. I am not here to condemn it. I am not here to necessarily judge it, as to say repent and turn back to anything, because this word was not given to it. This word was given to a set apart people. Okay, so that is not my purpose in bringing up the nature of the society that we as a people in captivity find ourselves living in. So we're going to be going to the book of Mashali, Proverbs chapter 31. But as we prepare to go there, I would like to first turn our attention, and I don't have it on the screen, family, so I'm just going to read it for you. Uh-oh, my thing is acting up here. Try to stop it. Oh boy. All right, let me see. I don't know if I can. All right, it's acting up. Don't know if I can stop it. Bear with me here just for a second. Wow. Don't know what you're seeing on your screen, but my screen is really acting up. But anyway, I won't be able to put this text on the screen for you, but what I am going to do is I'm going to read from the book of Sirach. I have a printed copy in front of me. I'm going to read from Sirach chapter 25, beginning in verse 16. Okay, so while we're going to talk about what a good woman should look like, I don't want to end on the negative. I want to end on the positive. So I'm going to begin with the negative, and then we're going to move on to the positive. So we're going to go to the book of Sirach, chapter 25, beginning in verse 16. It says, I would rather live in the same house with a lion or a dragon. Now they use the word dragon. I don't think that's the word that actually belongs. Okay, but that's what the translation uses, dragon. Okay, so I'm going to go with that. I would rather live in the same house with a lion or a dragon than with a bad wife. Okay, so now we're looking at the consequences of choosing a bad woman, a bad wife. Because in as much as there are good women, and a good woman is hard to find, there are many bad women, and there's not a shortage of them. Okay? But the writer here says, I would rather live in the same house with a lion or a dragon than with a bad wife. I would rather live in a house with a beast that will tear me apart, or a beast that spews fire, than to live in a house with a bad wife. In the book of Proverbs, in the book of Mashali, it says it is better to live in a corner of a rooftop than to live in a house with a nagging woman. It says in the book of Proverbs, right? It is better to live in the corner of a rooftop than to live in a house with a nagging woman, because her nagging is like the constant dripping of water. Imagine you trying to get some sleep, and you're laying in a house where the roof is leaking and it's raining outside, and all you're hearing all night is water coming down. Tap, 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 tap. It becomes annoying. It becomes like torture, right? So looking at the consequences of choosing a bad woman, a bad wife, it says, I would rather live in the same house with a lion or a dragon than with a bad wife. Now listen for a second, because I do not want to limit this, and I don't want us to limit our thinking to women only, because for a good woman, it is just as terrible living in a house with a bad man or a bad husband, a terrible husband. You see? It goes on to say in verse 17, when a wife is in a bad mood, when a wife is in a bad mood, her expression changes until she looks like an angry bear. You don't want to get her upset, family. Brothers, you don't want to get the woman mad, because it can make for some it can make for some long days and some cold nights. It says that when a wife is in a bad mood, her expression changes until she looks like an angry bear. Now the scriptures warns us about an angry bear, right? Now it says her husband has to go and eat with the neighbors, where he can't hold back his bitter sighs. Now some women, a bad wife, a bad woman, she lives in misery. Misery is her favorite company. You see, she dwells in chaos. How do you know a bad woman? A bad woman always tends to be in other people's business. Always finding something to gossip about. Always finding something to fuss about. Someone to talk about. You see? Always finding something to complain about. She is never satisfied. You see? And for a man, that is torturous. When you have a woman that is never satisfied, when you have a woman that is always bickering, when you have a woman that is always gossiping, always getting into something with somebody else, because she don't know how to keep her mouth. But quite frankly, you have men that are like that too. You have men who gossip just like bad women.
I've already talked to them.
Excuse me, go ahead upstairs. You have men who gossip just like bad women. You see, you have men who express some of the same behaviors as some of these bad women. So her husband, you know, this woman, a terrible woman. You know, let me put it this way, and we're gonna get into the good woman, into looking at the behaviors, the characters, or the characteristics of a good woman. But when you have a good woman, she is willing to work through the problems, right? She is willing to she's willing to converse, and you can work through the problems. But a bad woman, there is no reasoning with her. There is no conversing. She lacks understanding, right? And so instead of seeking to work through it, systematically working through the problem to resolve it, what she does is she becomes like an angry bear, it says. And then it gets so bad that the husband has to leave the house. He can't even get a meal because she won't cook him a meal. Her husband has to go and eat with the neighbors. You know, if you have a woman and you're working hard to provide for the family, and yet when you come home you can't get a meal, you can't get a good meal, a cooked meal, that's not a good woman. If you have a woman where you're working hard, that's not to say that the man is not supposed to cook, because you see, marriage is a partnership. We share the load, right? We share the load when it comes to providing, when it comes to providing for the family. We share the load when it comes to cooking for the family. We share the load when it comes to doing laundry. But there are many men, and there are also women in relationships where they're slaves in the relationship, right? Where you have some relationships where the man feel like he is not supposed to do anything in the house. He might step out of his clothes, and where he step out of it, that's where he leaves it. But yet he expects for the woman to come behind him and pick it up. You have some relationships where the man feel like he's not supposed to do anything but to go to work, come home, sit in front of the TV, watch football, but the wife is supposed to make sure that the house is clean and the food is cooked and the children are well taken care of. But his only responsibility is to go to work, bring home the money, and sit in front of the TV. You have relationships like that. That's a terrible man. And you also, on the flip side of that, you also have women who are pretty much the same way. Women who don't think that cleaning the house is a part of their responsibility. Who don't think that taking care of the children, teaching the children, instructing the children, and all of this stuff is a part of their responsibility. Where their best friends, their best companion is laziness. You see. Now, there's a question on the board. It says, what if the two of you are trying to work through the problems and the woman cooks and the man refuses to eat? Aquí adial said, let him starve then. Akut. Yeah, well.
Is it something in the ingredients he might not like? Start there.
Yeah, that's an honest question. Is it that he really don't like the food? Or is it that he is so upset that he won't eat the food? And now, you know, all of us deal with our anger differently. Some people, when they get upset, they really lose their appetite, right? And so if it's naturally, if that's what happens, if that individual loses their appetite because of being upset, then, you know, that's one thing. You can't say, well, you know what, I'm trying to make up, and so I need you to eat this food to show me that you're trying to make up too. No, you don't have to eat to show that he's trying to make up. Now, if he is not eating the food to try to prolong the strife, because people can do that too, he's using it as a way to say that, listen, I'm not at all interested in resolving this thing, and I'm going to show you by going on an hunger strike. You see? Yeah. Okay. So, you know, what we have to do is we have to be willing in a marriage. We have to be willing to, yes, we can come to a point where we are so upset at each other that the flesh don't want to let go of whatever it is that upset us, right? And also, it might be that one person says that, well, I understand you're trying to make up, but you're also not acknowledging the issue. So the question becomes, okay, is it a situation where, okay, this person says there's an issue and they're trying to communicate the issue, and the other person is acting as if there is no issue. Now just let's just get over it and get past it, you know, and let's move on with this meal. You see, if that's the case, then it is I would say that there is validity in the other person saying, you know what, you're not acknowledging the problems, and so by me just going and partaking in this meal, it's like saying, it's not that important, you know, forget about it and let's move on. No, but it is real, because I'm being affected by this, and I want us to come to a place where we can acknowledge it. Now, that's one thing. But is it a case also, or could it be a case where, again, one party is acknowledging, okay, so one person says there is an issue. The other person says, well, what's the issue? And the other said, well, these are the issues, or this is the issue. And you say, well, you know, well, let's try to work through it, right? And you come to, and you're showing every sign that you're willing to make some compromises, and you're willing to try to work on yourself so you can work through this issue. And you're showing that you're willing to work through the issue, but the other person is saying, you know what, you say you're willing to work through it, but you know what, I still ain't gonna eat your food. Now, that's not healthy, and that's actually only making matters worse. So, in a relationship, we have to be willing to compromise, right? We have to be willing to reason together, right? That's the only way we're going to resolve any issue. We got to be able to get beyond ourselves, okay? We got to be able to see things from the other person's perspective. You know, I was having a conversation yesterday with some people from work. I didn't bring it up, but they brought up the issues of race relations. Okay, now of course I'm black, they're white. As I listen to them talk, they talk in a one-sided way when it comes to black people. Like, basically, black people don't get ahead because they don't try, so on and so forth. Now, but I listen to them, and as I listen to them, what I got is that these people are really seriously ignorant of systemic problems, right? And so what I try to do is I try to enlighten them on the issues, that it's not so cut and dry as you might think. They try to use the country of Haiti and the Dominican Republic as an example, and not realizing that Haiti is the way it is because of sanctions, deep sanctions based on racism. And that's why Haiti don't get ahead while the Dominican Republic do much better, right? But people sometimes think they know something, think they understand something, not realizing that they're really ignorant to certain things. And so ignorance can really keep us hindered, and ignorance does hinder us, right? But if you recognize that somebody is ignorant of a thing, now that's where you, being the enlightened one, so to speak, that's where you've got to try to experience a little bit more patience and try to communicate to them what they do not know, and hoping that maybe they'll get it. And the fact of the matter is, sometimes they won't get it. You see, and that's where it really becomes frustrating. Sometimes they won't get it, and sometimes you got to decide that, you know what, I just got to leave them alone. But you can't decide to leave something alone or leave somebody alone if you have not tried to resolve the issue. And if you've tried, if you have given all that you can give, and then there is still no resolve, they're not hearing you, that's where you got to look at it and you got to say, well, you know what, maybe this ain't meant to be. Maybe this is really not for us. Because you can't have dysfunction and expect for it to be resolved if the people who are in the midst of the dysfunction are not willing to at least sit down and try to understand the dysfunction, and then come up with some resolutions to the dysfunction. Okay? Come together on a mutual basis, mutual agreement that, okay, we're going to try to work through this dysfunction. This is, first you got to recognize that there is dysfunction, what the dysfunction is, and then you're going to determine how you're going to work through the dysfunction. And the only way that's going to happen is if both are willing to listen, if both are willing to put their feelings, don't have their feelings be a roadblock to progress. Yes, your feelings are going to be there. The way you feel about certain things is going to be there, but it can become a roadblock to process if you allow it to. You see? Yep. Patience. Indeed. Right? So we've got to be willing. We got to be willing to work through the situation. We can't hold people hostage because of our bitterness or because of our hurt. You know, some people would like to, because somebody mess up, then no matter how the person apologize, or no matter how the person say, you know what, I'm sorry, and and maybe it is that I don't see what you're saying about me, but you know what, I'm willing for us to try to work through this. And so let's take a go at it. Let's try to work through this. But then you can have somebody on the other side saying, well, nah, You remember when you did this, and you're basically just trying to hold you hostage to something.
Tit for tat. You know,
Right.
we went through that. Well, we still might go through, it, but you would be trying to explain something to me, and I would not get it. You know, go in trying to explain it to me, and then a year or so later, you know, sometimes just months later, I'll hear somebody else say something else. It's like, oh, well, I get it, and you would say, you're just getting it. I've been talking about that. But, you know, sometimes you really, really, genuinely don't see what it is, you know. And it may not be in terms of relationships, but a lot of times relationships are like that. You know, you be trying so hard to please somebody, but it's like, I don't see why you're so upset with that right there. You know, so.
And a lot of times what we do is we create blind spots for ourselves. We create blind spots because we erect monuments, so to speak, and we feel like, okay, this is untouchable. You can touch everything else, but don't touch this. And in reality, the monument that you have erected is actually the problem. You see, so in a relationship, there can be nothing that's untouchable in the relationship if you expect for it to work. Right? There can be nothing that's untouchable, because the very thing that you make untouchable become your blind spot. It becomes the thing that keeps you from seeing what the problem really is. You see, so yes, absolutely, love is work. It's not an accident. You know, family, I had said to you, well, I'd shared with you that my wife had lost her cousin recently, in the last couple of weeks. She died at a young age. She was only 43. And so we went to the funeral home for the funeral last week, and we got there somewhat late, you know, about an hour late. And then as we walked in, you know, totally surprising to me, they asked me if I would, basically, if I would read the obituary, you know. And what that turned into was me officiating the funeral. But one of the things I communicated to the audience, was, as a people, the importance of us loving each other, right? The importance of us being willing to make the sacrifice for one another. The importance of us being near for one another. And what I communicated to them is that the fact that loving somebody is not something that happens accidentally. Guys, go upstairs. Loving somebody is not something that happens accidentally. But it is a choice, and it's going to take work. You see? It's not about ignoring the issues, but it's about making the decision to work through the issues. It's easier to just write somebody off than it is to say, you know what? We don't see eye to eye. We butt heads a whole lot, but you know what? I'm going to commit to loving you, and I want us to work toward building love. I want us to work toward building a relationship. So real love is work. Genuine love is work. Because all of us have our flaws. All of us, given enough time, we're going to rub each other the wrong way. It's going to create friction, but you know what that friction is there to do? That friction is there to sharpen the relationship. That friction is there to make the relationship stronger. The friction, the sparks comes when you have edges hitting one another. You're knocking off the rough stuff, and it creates sparks, it creates friction. But we got to be willing to stick it out and to work through it. And we can't see ourselves as, okay, I am the perfect one and you're imperfect, and so because I'm perfect and you're imperfect, it simply means then that we can't go together, we can't be together, we'll never, can never come out to be anything together. None of us are perfect. And we got to recognize that none of us are perfect. I got some stuff with me and you got some stuff with you. Reality is some of us might have more stuff than the other one, but that's where we complement each other, and that's where we make each other better. So looking at the bad woman and the bad man for that matter, he says in verse 16 of the book of Sirach chapter 25, I would rather live in the same house with a lion or a dragon than with a bad wife or a bad husband for that matter. Verse 17 says, when a wife is in a bad mood, and that could be a man too. And some men today, many of our men, and it's not just today, but this is something that has gone on for a long time. Some men, when they get upset, what they do is they beat up on their women. They beat up on their wives. They're abusive, and if they're not hitting them physically, they're abusive verbally. You see. Indeed, Akut. Indeed, I'm gonna come to that. You know what? If Akut, could you hold on to the questions till the end? I'm gonna make sure I reserve some time, and then at the end I'll answer the questions. Don't forget them. Just jot them down so you don't forget them. And at the end we'll come to the questions. Tuda Rabbah. Okay. Now it says her husband has to go and eat with the neighbors where he can't hold back his bitter sighs. You know, sometimes family, sometimes things can be so bad in the house, things can be so bad in the family, and you don't even feel safe. You can be in a relationship where you don't even feel safe venting your emotions. And it's not until you get around somebody else that you feel like you can vent, you can say what you have to say without being attacked. And that's what this is basically saying. So things are so bad at home that this man, he can't even get food from his wife. And so what he does is he goes to the neighbor's house. That's the only place he can get a meal. And there he can't hold back his bitter sighs. It's the only place where he can vent. When the reality is that in your relationship should also be that venting place. You should be able to say to each other, you know, this is truly what bothers me. You see? Or this is what's bothering me. And it not blowing up into some great, gigantic war. You see? You got to be able to vent, to express to each other what's the issue, to express within the household, to express within the family what the issue is, and so that you can work through it. But if you don't feel as if it's a safe space where you can do that without being attacked, then you're not going to do that. And then your problems will be in the street, because when you go and you talk to your neighbor about it, when you vent to your neighbor, it's not just going to stay with your neighbor. Pretty soon it's going to be all over the neighborhood. You see.
The wrong woman find out he don't like your cooking.
Yep, indeed. And before you know it, you have Jane bringing you cookies. You know, hoping that you'll like her cookies more. Well, anything is better than what you're not getting at home, right? Because if you ain't getting nothing at home, Jane hear that you're not getting nothing at home, no meal at home, and Jane brings something, in your mind, well, it's better than, anything is better than what I'm not getting. Akud Sharad wrote, Aki, I was just asked from a family member. I thought we are not to attend these funerals. I think I gave the right answer by saying, well, you can go if you are doing the speaking and not giving praise. Yes, so, you know, yes. So, you know, family, okay. Now, let me say this, that I'm going to say this, and when we deal with the so-called New Testament, we have to, number one, we have to take it with a grain of salt. We know that they have done much corruption in there. They've added and taken away stuff, okay? But that's not to say that the entire thing is false, but at the same time, a lot of things that have been put in and taken out, okay? But think about Yahusha, right? Yahusha was criticized on many different occasions for going to people's house who were not walking in obedience, right? You hear the story of Nicodemus, right? You hear the story of what was his name? The short guy who climbed the tree. Because he heard Yahusha was coming by. And then Yahusha went into his house to have a meal with him and to share the word with him. But yeah, Zacchaeus. And but then the set apart people outside, the people who felt like they were obedient, they had issues with that. But okay, let's do away with the so-called New Testament stories altogether. And let's think about the times in Yasharal's history when Yasharal was just totally lewd and absurd, right? When Yasharal was doing all kinds of vile stuff against the word of Yahuah, against the way of Yahuah. But yet, Yahuah would send messengers to their house, to the house. Yahuah would come into the house, and there he would speak to them, whether it be himself or he would send a prophet, but he would come into the defiled house. Right? So he's not above going into the defiled house. The question is, what is your purpose in going? Are you going just to be like everybody else? Or are you going to be a light in that dark place? Right? Now there are situations and circumstances. There are situations and circumstances, and that's where the wisdom of Yahuah is necessary and important. There are some situations where you know, okay, that's just not for me to go. That's not just not for me to attend, right? Different. I mean, there is no one prescription. There is no one prescription. You see, there's really no one prescription. There are instances where, you know, it's a matter of judgment. Do I go or do I not go? You see.
In our case, they know our stance.
Mm-hmm.
They know they know our stance. But for them to, you know, not get started in a whole hour, like, you know, we were late and somewhat on purpose. As to not run into anything. And I believe that was one of the reasons why they had it at the funeral home, like the morgue place. Mm-hmm. Instead of, you know, at the Kingdom Hall. You know? Mm-hmm. So it was many people there that would not refer. You could tell just by the language how a lot of people, you know, they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, they weren't Christians, some were Muslim, you know what I mean? It was different people there, but at the same time, they knew our stance. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't get invited to a whole lot, but you would ask somebody to read this, you know. I don't think it was by chance, to be honest. And not that that question was for, you know, that particular situation, but I just felt the need to share
Yeah, but it's so I agree with your response, Akut. So it is that there are times where listen, our people, the reality is that they're in to reach our people, you got to go where they're at, right?
We're lost people. How do we know if Yahusha wouldn't have been sitting in them chairs?
So we can't to be effective. We can't totally just cut ourselves off. You see, but yeah, yeah. But so wisdom is necessary. Wisdom. Bottom line is wisdom is necessary in every situation. I wouldn't tell somebody. I've been contacted by family here in the room. They say, a family member that has passed. Do I go or do I not go? And what I say to them is, number one, you know your people. That's number one, and number two is, I believe that it's important for you to represent, because the same family member you won't go, but at the same time you want them to respect you enough to hear you, right? To hear what you have to say. And their response is going to be, well, you feel like you're too good to be around us, so how you going to now want to talk to me and for me to hear what you have to say?
My Uncle Butch told me that out loud. He said, oh, I see I can't talk to you unless I'm talking about the word. I said, no, that ain't the case.
Yeah, so, that's it's important for us to keep that in mind. Tada for bringing up that question, Akut. At the end of the day, wisdom, let wisdom be our guide in those situations. All right, so now it says here, never lose your head. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's read verse 19 of Sirach chapter 25. Compared with the troubles caused by a woman, a bad woman that is, any other trouble looks small. When you have a terrible woman and she get ready to act the fool, ain't no other, the IRS can't even compare to her in your life. When you have IRS problems, you got some problems. Because the IRS, they don't give up. They'll seize your property. They'll seize everything you got. They'll put a freeze on your paycheck. They'll redirect whatever is in your bank account to their bank account. They'll redirect your paycheck to their account, whatever. And so the IRS is a very formidable adversary if they become your adversary, is the point that I'm trying to make. But you can't even compare the IRS to a bad woman, basically, is what is the point here. Okay? Compared with the troubles caused by a woman, a bad woman, any other trouble looks small. When you have a terrible woman in your life, or even a terrible man for that matter, any other trouble looks small. You see, because that person is going to affect your life in every way. They're going to affect you psychologically. They're going to affect you emotionally. They're going to affect you financially. They're going to affect your posterity. I'm talking about your children. They're going to affect you and infect you when you have a bad woman in your life or a bad man in your life. They're infectious. You see? They're infectious. They're like a staph disease, because now it doesn't just end with you, but it's going to affect your children too. And it's going to affect the relationship you have with people around you. Now, it goes on to say, so compared with the troubles caused by a bad woman, any other trouble looks small. May such women suffer the fate of sinners, transgressors. May they be cut off, basically. A quiet man living with a nagging wife, is like an old man climbing up a sandy hill. That's quite a picture. an old man, when you have a quiet man living with a nagging wife, a quiet man living with a loud woman, it's like an old man trying to climb up a sandy hill. Imagine an old man. He no longer has his youth. He barely has his equilibrium. And he's trying to climb up a sandy hill. He is not going anywhere anytime soon. He ain't getting nowhere. You trying to make life with a loud woman, a rambunctious woman, a boisterous woman, a nagging woman, you're not going to get anywhere in life. And while a bad man might not be nagging, but if you're in a relationship with a man that have no vision, if you're in a relationship with a man who lives life without purpose, if you're in a relationship with a man who does not love you nor appreciate you, and he shows it in what he does and in what he says, in how he talks to you, and in what he don't do, because it's not just in what people do that speaks, it's also in what they don't do. It's not just in what they say that speaks, but it's also in what they do not say. And so while from a woman's perspective, it might be her nagging, and not just her nagging, but her behavior in other ways. If two people come together, husband and wife, the purpose is to build. Right? The purpose is to build. Bottom line is building. When two people come together, the purpose is to build. Build. You're building a family. You're building stability. You're building set apartness. You're building pureness. You're building, right? But if two people come together and only one have a mindset to build, the other one seeks only to use the resources to spend. In order for you to build, number one, you got to be a collector. You got to be a saver. You can't begin to build if you have not saved. There's nobody who can build anything if they have not first done some saving. If you go to build a house, the person who goes to build a house, okay, let's take it back to in the early days. If you wanted to build a house, first, what you had to do first? You had to go out in the forest and you had to cut down some trees, right? And then one by one, you would drag them to the site, to the building site, to where you want to build your house. And there you would store them up. You would save them. You're saving, right? Until you get enough material to build the house. So before you can build anything, you got to be able to save. Right? Now, what if I'm trying to build a house, I'm going out in the forest, and I'm cutting down a tree, and I'm bringing them home one at a time, one day at a time. But here it is, I got a wife at home where when I bring in the lumber, as quick as I can bring in the lumber, she finds somebody to sell it to so she can take the money and go do what she want to do. Maybe it is that she like pocketbooks. Maybe it is that she like shoes. Maybe it is that she like, you know, whatever she likes. But she don't see the value in saving, because she might have the mindset that whatever you want, you should be able to have it instantly and overnight. And so if we got to save for it, then there is no worth in it. It's not worth saving for. It's not worth waiting for. You know, those principles applies to many areas of our lives. We got to get the mindset that if we want to build something, number one, so when we come together, we come together to build. You can't have one person with a mindset to build and another person with a mindset just to squander. Because if you're not saving to build, then you're tearing down. You can't have one person trying to build and the other person tearing down. You have women like that and you have men like that. So when we come together, we got to have the mindset. A good woman have the mindset to build. A good man have a mindset to build. And you got to possess patience for that. Because if you lack patience, then you're going to move too quick and you're going to squander your wealth. And when I say your wealth, I'm not saying that you already have a whole bunch of money stacked up somewhere, but you got to understand that your strength is your wealth. You got to understand that your knowledge and your wisdom is your wealth. You got to understand that your ability, the ability given to you by Yahuah to move and to accomplish things, that is your wealth. You see. So he says in verse 19, compared with the troubles caused by a woman, any other trouble, a bad woman, any other trouble looks small. May such women suffer the fate of sinners. In verse 20, a quiet man living with a nagging wife is like an old man climbing up a sandy hill. Verse 21, never lose your head over a woman's beauty, and don't try to win a woman because she is wealthy. Never lose your head over a woman's beauty, and don't try to win a woman because of her wealth. That's a caution to my Akeem. And that's for a man even, and again for a woman. Why are you attracted to somebody? Are you attracted to them because of the way that they look? Because maybe you might think they're fine today? Because you see, looks, beauty, the scriptures tells us that beauty is fleeting. You know? The way that she looks today or the way that he looks today ain't the way she's going to look in 20 years, 25 years, or 50 years. And the way she looks today might not be the way she look next week. Anything in life, anything can happen. And so what if something tragic happens and he or she survive? And now they don't have the physical beauty, the physical appearance that they had before. Are you still able? Are you still able to love them? Or was your so-called love only based on looks? You see. Shalom to you. Shalom, Aki. Aki Wendell. Oh, wow. That is great, Aki. That is great. That is great. I'm just reading Aki Wendell's message here. Aki Wendell, of course, have been joining us. Aki Wenyahu has been joining us for some time now from Costa Rica, and he's in Irvington, New Jersey. He's there for some days now and would love to meet us before he goes back to Costa Rica. Okay, great, Aki. Great, awesome. As a matter of fact, I don't know, maybe I can I would love to do that, Aki. I would love to do that. I'm off of work for over the next few days, so let us talk and get and we'll do that. I'm gonna I gotta get your information, and I could drive up and come see you. Let me. I don't want to put my phone number on. Just write down. Okay. Aki, send me an email. Send me an email to wordoflife55@yahoo.com or message me on Facebook, and we'll arrange on us getting together. All right. Exciting to hear that. Okay, sorry about that. All right. Okay, so never lose your head over a woman's beauty. And don't try to win a woman because she is wealthy. When a man is supported by his wife, there is sure to be anger, arrogance, and humiliation. Okay? Now, when a man is supported by his wife, there is sure to be anger, arrogance, and humiliation. Right? Now, that's not that's not to say that all of that is going to come from the woman. If you have a good woman, by the way, let me put it this way. If you're a man and your whole entire life your woman is taking care of you, even if she started out okay with it, there's going to come a point when she gets sick and tired of it. And that's where anger from her perspective comes in. Right? And that's where arrogance from her perspective will come in. And that's where humiliation to you will come in. Because she's going to get sick and tired of you being a lazy bum. Right? But if in a relationship, if it was a situation where, you know, we live in a society now where it is really it's necessary for everybody to be working, right? But if it's a situation, no need to be sorry there, Aki. I was just reading that. But if it's a situation where okay, I was working, you know, basically I was the main breadwinner for the household, but something happened and I lose my job, and now my wife steps up and she now becomes the main breadwinner for the household based on the situation. Nothing wrong with that. Nobody with good sense would get upset with that, right? But if it's a situation where only one person keeps carrying the weight, the load, and the other person is not doing anything to help the situation at all, then there's going to be anger. There's going to be arrogance on somebody's part, and there's going to be humiliation. You see? You do have you have men today, even men who call themselves Yahusha, who they feel like women are supposed to take care of them. They don't want to go get no job. You know, they feel like they should sit around all day and that a woman should take care of them. You see? But here is news, family, both to man and woman. It's up to each and every one of us, man and woman, to do our part in the household. And we're going to see that when we go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 31. It's not for a woman to just sit around and do nothing and have a man take care of her. And it's not for a man to sit around and do nothing and have a woman take care of her. All of us have a role to play in building the family, right? It's not for anybody to sit around and then just have the other person take care of them. That's not the way it should be. That's not the way it ought to be. That's not the way it works. When you have that situation, then what you have is one person building and the other one tearing it down. And you won't get anywhere like that. It takes two working together in order for us to get anywhere, right? Now, it says, a bad wife will make her husband gloomy and depressed and break his heart. Show me a timid man who can never make up his mind, and I will show you a wife who doesn't make her husband happy. Show me a timid man who can never make up his mind, and I will show you a wife who doesn't make her husband happy. What that says, family, and what it shows is that, you know, there is a saying that goes, behind every good man there is a good woman, right? Behind every strong man there is a strong woman. And what it confirms again is that number one, no man is an island, right? That we need each other. We need each other. I can't be the best that I was created to be if my wife is not being the best that she was created to be. And in order for her to be the best that she was created to be, I've got to be supportive of her. And in order for me to be the best that I was created to be, she's got to be supportive of me. Right? If she is miserable, nagging, needy all the time, and not having anything to offer whatsoever, what does that make me? It makes me weaker. Or if it's the other way around, it makes her weaker. You see? So we all need each other to be the best that we were created to be. So he says, show me a timid man who can never make up his mind, and I will show you a wife who doesn't make her husband happy. Sin, transgression begins with a woman, and we must all die because of her, it says here. Now, this is what it says here, but I don't think that's from one perspective. There's also another perspective to this. That's just from one perspective, but there's another perspective to this. And that is, while a lot of times men might tend to want to blame the woman for the downfall of man, that's simply excusing the man and his role in the act of disobedience, right? That's simply excusing the man and his role in the act of disobedience. You know, my wife brought something to my attention the other day. When you go to the book of Bereshit and you look at the text seemed to suggest that when Shaitan came to Yahuah, who they call Eve, that Adam was present. It's not that she was by herself and he came while she was alone and he enticed her. No, when you read the text, it suggests that they were together. So the problem there is that even though he did not speak to Adam, he spoke to the woman. The problem is that the man failed to do what he was supposed to do, and that was he failed to protect his wife. He failed to speak up. Not only did he fail to speak up, not only did he fail to protect his wife, he then failed to be the man in the relationship that he's supposed to be. He failed to stand up and say, you know what, babe? No, Yahuah says not to do this, so we're not going to do it. He suffered from the man syndrome. That's what it was. He suffered from the man syndrome. The man syndrome is that, you know, after you had been needy for some time and all of a sudden you find yourself with a woman, it can be hard to say no. Right? I didn't say it's impossible to say no, but it can be hard to say no. And so he found it hard to disappoint his wife by saying no. And so when she offered him the fruit, he, instead of saying no, we shouldn't do that, he was thinking about what that no might mean for later on. You see? He was thinking about what the impact the no might have on a little later. And so he said, you know what, I can't jeopardize what I'm looking forward to later on. And so I better go along with her now. I got to make her happy because happy wife, happy life. Yes, he was concerned with the repercussions. But sometimes you got to be willing to live with the repercussions if she is not smart enough or he is not smart enough to make the right choice. Sometimes you just got to say no, no matter what. Yes, they're going to be angry. But if they're smart enough, they'll get over it. If they're wise enough, they'll get over it. And they'll see what it is that you're trying to do eventually. In some cases, they're foolish enough that they'll never see it. And if you have a man or a woman that's so foolish that they can't see what is right, no matter what, it might be that, okay, it's time to leave this thing alone. You can't continue to carry, listen, you can't continue to carry dead weight. It only weighs you down. And to try to drag along a foolish person, it's like, you know, they say that what the Romans used to do in torturing people, in early in the day of the days of the Roman emperor, what they would do is to torture a person, they would hang them up. Hey, they would hang them up, and then they would tie to them a dead body. They would tie the dead body to them, and that's how they would torture the person. Now, this would torture the person starting off, it would torture them psychologically, but then in the torture would become physical also, because what happens is, as the dead body begins to rot and maggot begins to eat it, the maggot then begins to transfer from the dead body to the living person. And so you have the living person now that's rotting away with the dead one tied to him. You see? And when you try to bring along somebody who have no vision, somebody who is lazy, somebody who have no wisdom, that's like tying a dead body to yourself. And eventually, the thing that is dead is going to destroy the living. You see? And so we all have to examine ourselves. Am I breathing life into the relationship? Or am I dead? You see? Am I contributing or am I detracting? He says, don't let a bad wife have her way any more than you would allow water to leak from your cistern. If she won't do as you tell her, divorce her. Don't let a bad wife have her way no more than you would let water drip from your cistern. If she won't do what you tell her to do, divorce her. Put her away. Again, you can have relationships that are toxic because they were started on the wrong premise. Right? Got together for the wrong reasons. And instead of building, you find yourself just spinning your wheels. Because one person might be trying to climb the ladder, but the other person is steady pulling them down. And so we have to examine ourselves in the relationship and ask, what am I doing? Am I enhancing the relationship? Am I being a burden in the relationship? Or am I helping? Are we working together to make this better? Are we working together to make a better future for our children, our community, our nation? Are we working together to make the future better for each other? Or am I just adding misery to the relationship? Right? So that's the negative part of this, right? So when we think about the fact that yes, a good woman is hard to find, and we talk about a bad woman and what the bad woman looks like. The bad woman or bad man is selfish, right? They're nagging, self-centered, lazy, right? These are some of the things about a bad person, a bad spouse. Okay, so let's look at the bright side of it now, and we're gonna go to the book of Mashali, the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 31. You know what? Aki, I see you put your number down. Let me write it down real quickly. One. Okay, I've got it. All right. All right, we're going to go to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 31. bear with me while I get it on YouTube also. Wow, this thing is really acting up. I might have to wow, let's see. Let's see what it does. Okay, from my end it's acting up. On YouTube it doesn't seem to be acting up, but we'll see what happens. All right, so we are now in the book of Proverbs, looking at the characteristics of a good woman. In verse 10 it says, who does find a capable wife? Capable wife. For she is worth far more than rubies. So you see, a good woman, a capable wife, she is valuable, exceedingly valuable. When you have a good woman, she is of great value. And you won't know, sometimes you don't realize how valuable she is until you don't have her, right? So who does find a capable wife? For she is worth far more than rubies. The heart of her husband shall trust her, and he has no lack of gain, right? So a good woman is trustworthy. Her husband can trust her, and also he has no lack of gain. In other words, she is a contributor to the household. She's a contributor. She's not just a taker, but she also contributes, right? She finds ways to contribute. Now, you might look at it and you might say, okay, as a woman, let's say you're a woman, you're in a marriage, and circumstances, even though you might want to go out and get a job, you might want to work so you can help out financially in the household. You might be able to contribute financially to the family, but you're unable to do that. Maybe it's a case like my wife and I, where we can't afford for my wife to go get a job, because childcare, what it would cost for us for childcare, would be more than she would be bringing in. And so we make the decision that, okay, instead of her going out getting a job, well, I'll go to work, and she will stay home. She'll take care of the children, the house, and so on. But I'll go to work, right? So let's say you're a woman who find yourself stuck in the house. You can't go out and get a job, and it's not that your husband is making a whole lot of money, where everything is rosy and the bills are all being paid on time, and you have nothing to worry about, and the things that you like as a woman, you can get them when you want them, and so on. It's not like that, right? But yet you find yourself stuck at home, okay? And so you might be asking, well, am I contributing? How am I contributing to this family? Am I of any value in this relationship? Am I adding any gain to this relationship? And the question becomes, well, okay, number one, if that's the case, if it's a situation like ours, right, where you can't go to work because the cost of taking care of the children, paying for daycare and everything would, it would just be more than what it costs for you to stay home. Well, let me put it this way. The first value when it comes to adding gain to our household, I'm going to use my wife and I relationship as an example. I could say that my wife adds roughly $2,000 a month to our income, right? She doesn't have a job. She doesn't work. She doesn't work outside the house. But she adds roughly $2,000 to our income from the perspective of childcare, right? What do I mean by that? Because by her being home, we don't have to pay for somebody, for our children to go to daycare, right? Or for somebody to watch our children before and after school program, so on and so forth. So she adds roughly $2,000 to our income. Okay? She's home. She's not going to work, but she is working, right? So she adds to our income by her being able to be there for our children, getting them to school, getting them from school, taking them to doctor's appointments, so I don't have to keep calling out from work to do that and everything else like that, right? Now, is that all? As my wife, as the mother of our children, as the woman in the house, is that all that she should be concerned with? The fact that, okay, I'm here, I'm making sure they get to school and they get home. Is that all that she should be concerned with? No. She has to, or she should make sure that she is impacting their lives in ways that only she can. You know, because this is an opportunity as a mother to impact their lives in ways that not a whole lot of people have that opportunity to do, right? And being home means that she has the opportunity to make sure other things are in place also and in order. Whether it be laundry, cooking, cleaning, you know, it's not a situation where she shouldn't be home all day long with the only responsibility is to take the children to school and pick them up, and then I come home from working maybe anywhere from 8 to 16 hours, and every day the house is just dirty and upside down, and the kitchen is dirty, and there's dirty clothes piled up all over the place. No, that wouldn't be right either. Now, that's not to say that it's up to her to make sure that all this is done. When you have a family of 9 total, that she has to make sure that all the clothes get washed and the house remain clean the whole way. When you have children, if you have just one, you'll realize that it can be a challenge trying to keep a house clean with just one. Now imagine when you have what? When you have 6 of them? It's 6 times the challenge, right? And so I can't just leave the responsibility on her to make sure that all these things are done. Even though I go to work, I still have to come home and I still have to make sure that I help her, because she can feel burnt out also. After all, she's sitting home all day long. She don't have the kind of interaction with grown people that a lot of people have who are going outside of the house, right? And that can wear her out also. So I've got to be supportive of my wife in that manner. So who does find a capable wife? For she is worth far more than rubies. The heart of her husband shall trust her, and he has no lack of gain. So I don't have to worry about my wife. The fact that I'm at work, I can trust my wife. My heart does trust in my wife. I don't have to worry about her. Okay, she's here by herself, so no, she have somebody, some strange man in my house or anything like that. So a good woman you can trust. Your heart trusts in her. And he also has no lack of gain. She shall do him good, not evil, all the days of her life. She shall do him good, not evil, all the days of her life. Now, we live in a society where it's different. But from our heritage and the way that we ought to be raised up, the woman is to be raised up, and the man to be committed to his asha, to be committed to his asha, the woman to her ayash, her husband, all the days of their life. So you're to be raised up to preserve yourself for your spouse all the days of your life. Now, that's not the way it is in our dysfunction. But we're being groomed, even from a child. It is our heritage that we are groomed for our marriages. We are being prepared for our wives and for our husbands, even from a child. And so even though you might not know, you won't know at 2 years old and 5 years old and 7 years old and 10 years old and 12 years old. You don't know who your husband is going to be, but the whole time you're being groomed for him, and she is being groomed for you, and you're not doing anything to break the trust, the bond between you, that Yahuah knows who he is, who she is, but you not yet know. But all your life, she shall do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She shall seek wool and flax, and with delight she works with her hands. Okay, she shall seek wool and flax. So this is the wife. Seek wool and flax, and with delight she works with her hands. So she goes out there and she plant the cotton. She grows it and she spins it to make clothing. And she also is involved in growing the food. All right? And with delight she works with her hands. She don't find it burdensome to work. You see? She's not lazy. A good woman is not lazy. A good woman thinks of how she can clothe her family. A good woman thinks about how she can beautify the home for her family, to make it not just a house but a home. She shall be as the ships of Tarshish. She brings in her food from afar. A good woman, she is willing to go the distance to add to the family. You see, she shall be as the ships of Tarshish. She brings her food from afar. She is willing to go to whatever distance it may be in helping to provide for her family. She also rises while it is still night, while it is still dark, and provides food for her household and a portion for her girls. See, she rises early in the morning to make provision, to prepare food for the family. And again, this is not just a one-person thing. It's not that the expectation is that only the woman can do this or only the woman should do this. But certainly, it's an instrumental part of the woman's role in the family. She shall consider a field and buy it. From her profits, she shall plant a vineyard. Now this brings us to the subject of money, right? And finances in the relationship. Because you see, with a good woman, a husband can trust her with their money. She's not going to take it and just squander it, but she's going to use it wisely. Okay, she realized that money is an investment. It's a tool for investment. It's a tool for making their future, the future for them and their family better. And so she uses it wisely. So she shall consider a field and buy it. Why is she going to buy a field? She is investment minded. She is property minded. Right? You know, many of us have been brought up with the mindset that the way to go is to go to school, get a degree so we can go get a job and work for somebody. That's the way this society has taught us. It has not taught us to be owners. It has taught us to be mere employees, only servants. It don't prepare us with the mindset of being owners. We don't think about being owners. We only think about working for somebody, but that's where the mindset's got to change. And a good woman have that mindset. You see, but the only way you're going to be an owner is by making sacrifices. You can't expect to be an owner while still having everything your way, having everything you need right now. You can't have it both ways. But when you have an owner mindset, then you're willing to put the work in and to put the sacrifice in so that you can achieve your goal. And so she considers a field and she buys it. She's very thoughtful when it comes to when it comes to investing, when it comes to managing money. She's very thoughtful. And from her profits she shall plant a vineyard. Now, vineyard here, it you know what it communicates? It communicates a time of ease. So she put the work in, and once the work have paid off, then she buys the vineyard. There comes a time where they can relax a bit, where they don't have to work so hard. She buys a vineyard. She plants a vineyard from the profit. You see? A lot of people, they're only living off the capital, never giving the capital a chance to gain any profits. Because again, we don't think like owners. We only think like servants, laborers. So she considers a field and she buys it. From her profit she shall plant a vineyard. She shall gird herself with strength and strengthen her arms. She shall gird herself with strength and strengthen her arms. A good woman is strong. You see? A good woman equips herself for success. A good woman is self-reliant. And when I say self-reliant, I don't mean that she have the attitude like she don't need her husband and she don't need Yahuah. But if something should happen to her, guess what? She's the type of woman where her children are still going to be taken care of. She girds herself with strength and strengthens her arms. Her arms there can represent her offspring, her children. She shall taste when her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out by night. She shall taste when her gain is good. And what that says is that she don't eat prematurely. She don't eat out the pot till the food is cooked. You see, she don't dip into the principle till it begins to turn a profit. She don't tear down the house while she's still building it. She is patient. She is knowledgeable. She is strong. She is thoughtful. She is caring. She is loving. She also has a sense of independence. She shall taste when her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out by night. She is watchful. She shall stretch out her hands to the distaff. She will stretch out her hand to those who are lacking, to those who are disadvantaged. And their hand shall hold the spindle. Again, she is a hard worker. She shall extend her hand to the poor, and she shall reach out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household is dressed in scarlet. All of them is properly dressed for the winter, for the seasons. And scarlet here really is a representation. I don't know if it's the right translation, but basically what it is saying is that they're well dressed. She shall make tapestry for herself. She is dressed in fine linen and purple. She is well dressed. She carry herself well. Right? But again, she doesn't do so prematurely. You have a lot of women today and even men. You see them on the street and, you know, they're dressed in the latest fashion, latest brand name, and quite frankly, they have nothing in their house and they have nothing to their name. Many people, and I'm going to say even a lot of black people, they have this syndrome. They have this thing where they feel like they have to go out the way to wear the most expensive stuff. And in reality, they are the poorest of all. You know? They're driving Benz, BMWs, wearing whatever brand name you can think of. And they're the poorest among the poor. You know, and that's where the mindset have got to change. You know, a good woman, she don't go out dressed in fur and all of this stuff prematurely. After she has put the work in, after she has bought the field, and after she has turned a profit, then she begins to enjoy the fruit of her labor. It's not the other way around. Some people want to enjoy the fruit without the labor. You have not labored, but you want to enjoy the fruit. And that's what holds our people back. Because they're not willing to put in the labor, and they're not patient enough to wait for the harvest. They begin to pick the fruit while it is still green. It says her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. He is respected as a result of having a good woman. The man is respected. And in the same way that you can have a good woman and be respected, when you have a loud woman, when you have an aggressive woman, I mean unnecessarily aggressive, when you have a foolish woman, you are equally disrespected. And so a good woman gains your respect. A terrible woman, a bad woman, gains you disrespect in the gates. You see? Yes, indeed, Aki. As Aki Adial just says, for years we fought not to have brands on our backs. Today we fight to have brands on our back. It's been flipped. You know, it says here, so her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She shall make fine linen and sell them, and shall give girdles for the merchants. She shall make fine linen and sell them. She's industrious, right? She's industrious. She is, again, I say she is thoughtful, right? She is business-minded. She is investment-minded. She is wise in her spending. Not only that, she possesses wisdom. Verse 26, she shall open her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the Torah of kindness. You know, when I was growing up, when I was a kid, I watched my grandmom, and my grandmom is the greatest example I guess I can point to. I've seen my mom too, but not to the extent that I've watched my grandma. My grandma would wake up early in the morning and she would make us breakfast before we go to school, and then we'd come home for lunch and she would be cooking lunch, and then we'd come home for dinner and she would be cooking dinner, and in the process she was washing clothes and she was cleaning the house. She didn't leave the house, but she was always busy. I never saw my grandmom just sit down. She was always busy. You know? And my mom is the same way, but as a younger kid, for a time I didn't see my mom wasn't always there as a younger kid for me, but even as when she was there, and even now she is like that. She's always doing something. But we have excuse me. The reality is we have a younger generation today that don't see the value in hard work. Everybody is looking for just the easiest way out, and the easiest way out is not always the best way out. You know, the easiest way out oftentimes causes you not to appreciate what it is that you have. Nothing wrong with laboring. Nothing wrong with a little struggle. You see? It teaches you the skills necessary for survival. It strengthens you. So it says she watches over the ways of her household. Oh, she shall also open her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the Torah of kindness. So a good woman, when she speaks wisdom, right? A good woman, she don't lower the standards for her children by the way that she carries herself and by the way that she comes out of her mouth. And the same thing is true for a man. But when she speaks with wisdom. She sets a standard for her children, for her house. And the Torah of kindness is on her tongue. She watches over the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Yeah, she don't eat the bread of idleness. She don't just sit around and waste time and do nothing. She watches over the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children shall rise up and call her Barak, her husband too, and he praises her. Many daughters have done nobly, but you have risen over them all. Loveliness is deceptive, and prettiness is vain. A woman who fears Yahuah is to be praised. And so if you're gonna get with her simply because of her beauty, beauty is deceptive because of her looks. Looks can be deceiving. Loveliness is deceptive, and prettiness is vain. But a woman who fears Yahuah is to be praised. So above all, what you need, the exemplification of a good woman is a woman who praises and fears Yahuah. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. Now, as a woman or as a man, what would happen if somebody give you of the fruit of your hands? Whatever it is that you've been cultivating, whatever it is that you've been producing, what would it look like if somebody should determine that, you know what, to acknowledge a coot so-and-so, or to acknowledge a key so-and-so, I'm going to give them of the fruit of their hands. I'm going to give them a batch of what they have produced. What would that look like? Would it make you feel good to receive back what you have produced? You know? To look back at your life and to see what legacy you have left, would it make you feel good about yourself? when you look back, can you say that I've done this or I've done that, I've achieved this or I've achieved that, I've produced this or I've produced that? Or in looking back, what will it be? Will you see nothing, or will you see a mess? You see. You know, this woman spoken of here in the book of Mashali, in the book of Proverbs, she accomplished a whole lot. She really did. She accomplished a whole lot. Now, you put that in context in the scriptures. The women of that time also had, they had helpers, right? They had handmaids. They had help, and so it's not that this woman did all of this stuff by herself. It's not that she did all of it by herself. But and so somebody today might say, well, yeah, that's right. She didn't do all that by herself. So how can you expect me to get all that done by myself? But the reality is that today we have things a whole lot easy. She had to walk for miles to get water. You got in many cases they had to go for miles to get water. In many cases, well, today we have water flowing in our houses. We have technological advancements. We have everything to our comfort, right? And so today we have our own helpers. But even with the helpers that we have today, you still have people who does not accomplish half as much as that as others in past generations have accomplished, because we have set the standard so low for ourselves. We have become so lazy, and we just refuse. We refuse to hold ourselves to higher standards. But as people of Yahuah, that's what we've got to do. We should feel terrible if we look back at our lives as man or woman, and what we see is a trail of inaccomplishments, a trail of laziness, a trail of dysfunction. Because you see, what's going to tell your life story is the seeds you leave behind. Your children and your grandchildren, they're going to tell your life story. Now, the reality is that we live in a society too where sometimes you try your best with your children and they still go and do their own thing. But you know, life have a way of waking us up. It might be, you will be without excuse, because it might be late when that child will say, you know what, my mom always tell me this, or my dad always say that, but I never did anything with it. Now I see what they were saying. But if you've done your job, it will be a lasting witness in one way or another. You see, but the key is that for man and woman, for us, if we're going to be a good husband, a good wife, then we've got to be supportive of one another. We can't be lazy. We've got to be thoughtful. We've got to be communicative. We've got to be humble. We can't be selfish, can't be self-serving, can't be self-seeking, can't be greedy. We got to have some patience. We also have to have a mind of ownership, have a desire to own instead of just being a renter, so to speak. Own the business instead of thinking of yourself only as a worker. And with that in mind, teach our children to be the same. Even though all around us in society, everything is lewd and totally lawless and disrespectful, unmannerable, we got to determine as a woman, as man, that we're going to do the opposite. We're going to teach our children the opposite. It might seem as if we're fighting an uphill battle, but we can't give up. You see, and so, you know, the key to being a good woman the key to being a good man is to be, number one, to be good listeners. Number two, to be hard workers. First and foremost, I should say, to fear Yahuah. Be good listeners, hard workers, and to change the way we think. Know what our purpose is. Our purpose, we were put together to build. Not for one to build and the other to tear down, or for both to tear down and not build. We were put together to build, and the only way we are going to build and realize what we are building, to see it come to fruition, is if we work together. Well, Mashpaka, I know that there were some questions. I'm going to stop here for today concerning Proverbs 31. That brings us to the end of the book. But I'm going to open up the microphone to any comments or questions at this time. Oh, that's beautiful, Akut. That is beautiful. And that reminds me of something my grandmom used to do. She was always my grandmom, I never seen her buy a sheet. She always crocheted the blanket, or the blankets, the bed covering. She would crochet them. You know, that's beautiful. And you know what's amazing? Skills like that, and those were things that were passed down to our people. But today it's taken for granted. And I was watching the Antique Roadshow the other day, not too long ago. It was a few months ago. But this man came on the Antique Roadshow, and he had a blanket. And the blanket was from the time of slavery here in America. And what it was a blanket that generation after generation they would add to the blanket. Different, so the mother would pass it down to her daughter. The mother would, it's basically the blankets, and it was common during slavery, but they oh, Akutyana taught you. Awesome. It was passed down, but and the blanket were intended to tell the story of our people, and to tell the family story. And it would be woven in that way. Different things would be added to the blanket, like scraps of cloth and stuff, but it's in a way to tell a story. But he took it to the Antique Roadshow, and come to find out, the blanket was worth some enormous sum of money, based on the age of it and how good it was kept, and so on. But the point is that it was a skill that was, but it wasn't just sewn or knitted to be tucked away, and not used, because it was something that was used. They would pass it down from one generation to the next, but it was still being used, you know. But it spoke to, number one, the resiliency of our people in spite of great difficulty, and the mindset and the will to succeed in spite of whatever might be happening, you know, to strive and to survive. But I believe that for the most part, in many cases, as a people, we have kind of lost that, and certain important skills we have kind of like taken them for granted, and we don't see the importance of it. When you think about us as a people these days, there was a time when we would clothe ourselves. We knew how to make our own clothing. Today, most of us, including myself, if we can't go to a store and buy a piece of clothing, then we're going to walk naked, because we don't know how to do it, right? And we got to get back to that point where we know how to survive. Where we think from the perspective of being owners rather than merely being dependents, you know. So I believe that is important, and it begins It begins in the family. It begins with the family structure, and the woman plays a very important role in that. The woman plays a very important role in that, and so does the man. We need each other, right? We need one another. But we got to get back to that as a people. Anyway, I'm gonna stop here, and I'm gonna open up the microphone to any comments or questions. I know there were some earlier. So Mashpaka, once again, it is my hope that our read through the book of Mashali, Proverbs, have been a baraka to you, and also today's study have caused us to reflect, examine, and to ask ourselves, what can I do better? How can I serve this relationship better? And in so doing, how can I serve my people better? Praise Yahuah. Allahuya. All right, Mashpaka. Allahu Yahuah. I'm gonna see if we have any comments or questions. If so, you can raise your hands. Oh, by the way, Akut, let me see. Akut Lanesha, yeah, you had a question earlier, Akut. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to it right away. Could you remind me? Tuda Aki, Tuda Rabba, Aki Matat Yahu. Could you remind me, Akut, of what that was? Oh, yes, that is it. Yes. Unequally yoked. I was told by my fiance that we are unequally yoked because we don't agree on certain things. I thought being unequally yoked meant I believe in the Most High and he believes in Jesus. Okay. All right. So, unequally yoked. From the perspective of Scripture, being unequally yoked really is about whether one is serving Yahuah, one spouse serves Yahuah, and the other is serving an idol, right? That's the main point of being unequally yoked. You see, put it another way, and the scripture says this: two cannot walk together unless they're in agreement. You can't have two people walking together unless they're in agreement. So overall, being unequally yoked is about who you serve, right? Being unequally yoked is about who you serve. But you can then break that down and you can look at a relationship. Hey guys, you can look at a relationship between two people, and it's not about being unequally yoked then, but it's whether or not you're moving in the same direction, right? Whether or not one is building and the other is tearing down, or you know, whether or not you're striving towards becoming better, or you find yourselves going in two different directions. Now, you both might be might serve Yahuah, but when it comes to, let's use for example, let's say when it comes to finances, your behaviors are different. When it comes to communication, your behaviors are different, because maybe one person is more open to communicate while the other don't want to communicate. When it comes to listening, one person might be willing to listen while the other have no interest in listening. Not necessarily, it's to some extent it's being unequally yoked, but not from the perspective of a believer and an unbeliever, right? Not from the perspective of a believer and an unbeliever. Now we read in the book of Sirach, where it talks about a foolish woman. And basically what it said there, and I'm going to go back to that real quickly. I believe it's in verse 29 or so. Let me see if I find it again here real quick. Where is it at? Bear with me while I look for it.
Look that up and find out what it really says. I'm weak for yoke means to be what?
To be yoked means to be bound together. It's an agricultural term.
So when two are bound together, unequally bound together, that's what the term is saying.
Yeah, when you yoke, a yoke is something that's used on oxen, 2 cows, 2 horses, for example. And when you put these 2 animals together, from the perspective of agriculture, you can't put a horse and a cow together to make an oxen, because one is taller, one is shorter, right? And you can't put 2 cows together that are on different
Go upstairs.
that are different sizes, right? Because then the plow won't pull right. Okay, so when 2 people come together, you have to have that balance. Or if you don't have that balance, you got to be willing to work toward that balance, right? So in the same way that you couldn't put 2 cows together and an oxen in a yoke, they're not the same size. When you have 2 people coming together who are on 2 different levels, you're going to find yourself pulling separately, and you can't accomplish what you should be accomplishing if you were on the same, or working, on the same plane, working toward the same goals, so on and so forth.
Basically, you may not both get this, because a cow is strong and a horse is strong, whereas one is taller than the other. And at times, one could be pulling harder, stronger, faster, and the other one could be pulling, but not pulling as fast.
Yeah, well, the yoke is going to be lopsided, and what it does is you're just not gonna, it's not gonna accomplish what it's supposed to accomplish.
So when you're talking about 2 that are serving Yahuah, basically you have to come to an agreement. Okay. Now that doesn't necessarily make one side of the yoke wrong and the other side of the yoke right. It's just that we need to come to an agreement about how we're going to handle a situation. Correct?
Well, we can't.
Yoke would sound like one is right, one is wrong. Which one is right? Which one is wrong? So because for the job you may need a tall, strong horse. For the job you may need a short, strong bull.
All right, hold on.
So.
All right, hold on. Here's the bottom line. You have wrong, you have right. Right? In life, there is wrong and there is right. Okay? And sometimes people disagree, and it's not that you can say, well, in some situations it's not so serious, or it's not so black and white where, okay, yeah, you're definitely wrong and yeah, you're definitely right. In some situations, it's just a matter of compromising to meet at a midpoint. Whereas in some situation, you have something or someone that is definitely wrong and someone that's definitely right concerning a situation. It's no gray area. It's either right or it's wrong. Okay? So what's necessary to resolve that is whether or not there is enough humility in the relationship where people can listen to one another, reason with one another, and be willing to be taught, instructed if they're wrong about something. If you're somebody who feel like you know everything, and you may truly not know everything, but can't nobody tell you otherwise, then you're not going to be able to walk together. Again, how can 2 walk together unless they're in agreement?
Oftentimes what you see in relationships like that is you'll have a person right in a particular, inside a particular scenario, but because I see your flaws in other areas, I'm saying to myself, how could you not see that and you see this? know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. It's like a going back and forth, tit for tat, unequally.
Yeah, but okay, but does that make it right for either person? Because you see, at the end of the day, we've got to be humble enough where even if somebody that is so corrupt, so dead wrong, see you doing wrong, and say to you that, you know what you're doing is wrong. You can't be so prideful in yourself that you're going to say, well, who are you to tell me that what I'm doing is wrong when you are corrupt yourself? You got to be humble enough to acknowledge that, yes, you know what, he's right. He corrupt, yes, but what I'm doing is wrong. And you got to be humble enough to receive that and make the changes in your life, right, from a personal perspective. But if you're steady looking at the fact that, oh no, you're wrong, so who are you to tell me I'm wrong, even though you're dead wrong, that don't make you. Yeah, Shaf, go ahead upstairs now. Now.
Because he can't keep it down. He just loud.
So if your approach is going to be, well, yeah, I'm wrong, but who are you to tell me I'm wrong? And so because you're wrong, yeah, I'm wrong, but I'm going to keep on being wrong because you're wrong. Well,
sound like we both got pride.
Yeah, you're no better than he is, and if he's not changing, he's no better than you are. Okay? So simply because, yeah, somebody's pointing out your flaws and they have flaws, that's not an excuse for you to continue in your flaws, because then nothing becomes right, you see. And the reality is that y'all not building anything. The only thing you're doing is tearing each other down. And that's where in the book of Sirach it says, well, if that's the case, it's better if you divorce. It says here in verse 25, don't let a bad wife have her way any more than you would allow water to leak from your cistern. If she won't do as you tell her, divorce her. That goes from man or woman. If you can't let somebody who continue to do bad and wrong, just continue to do bad and wrong, and they're not listening. If that's the way, separate. Go your own way. You see what I'm saying? Let me go to Aki Damon. Please go ahead, Aki.
Shalom, Master God.
And shalom to you, Aki.
Shalom, Aki. Yes, I do believe, and this is a great lesson, right up my alley, so to speak, right up my alley. A lot of times as well, just to add on, piggyback on what you said, we sometimes get in the way. We don't step away. We don't step away from a situation. We can sometimes enable a person to go either way. Mm-hmm. We can enable a person to continue in that bad behavior. Mm-hmm. The most important thing that I'm finding in my relationship is, that to be able to reason about situations, because regardless of what happened in the past and things of that nature, if you're not able to talk things out, there's no point. Mm-hmm. Nothing is going to come of it if you're not able to reason and be able to talk about the situations. I mean, especially when the situation comes up, that situation may come up, and instead of dealing with that situation, what happened is we go back to what happened then instead of dealing with what's in front of us. We will continue to, and that does come from unresolved things that's constantly being tossed under the carpet, so to speak. And so if you never deal with things, just you pretty much mentioned, if you never deal with things, then what happens is a bitterness starts to come about, a bitterness, malice, different things that a person may hold on to because no matter what, you don't want to deal with it, and then when it's convenient, sometimes when it's convenient, we will we will, a situation come up, we will, we like to mud, throw mud and sling mud and things of that nature instead of when you have the opportunity, and this is for all of us, when you have the opportunity to deal with it, you don't take that opportunity. Instead, you wait and use it for ammo. And that's not fair to neither a man or a woman. So one thing I'm definitely learning is that in order to grow in any situation, no matter how it started, it's how you finish. It's not a matter of how you start. It's a matter of what you're doing in the moment, seizing the moment. And if you can't recognize that, then there's really no point. Because all you will have is perpetual, constant back and forth on the same ride over and over and over again. So this was right up my alley. This was definitely right up my alley because, as you know, Key, we came to you and talked about our issues, and it was a baraka. Because even though it wasn't really resolved and we really never got back to it, I had a chance to reflect on a lot of things. And so I was able to think things through and see things for what it was. And this was something that I felt like needed to happen, regardless of how sloppy it was, because I wasn't prepared. I was unprepared about it, but I knew it was necessary if I wanted to, deal with the matter. And that's the thing. You never know how things are going to come at you in a relationship. You never know how things are going to come at you. You never know what's going to happen. And if we're not careful in that moment, then we can regret and it would be a major setback. And so we definitely have to exercise patience. You have to exercise self-control. And that's essential. It's very important that we exercise these things. I mean, not just with you helping us out, but this is a problem that I see a lot of, people come through these barbershops. As a matter of fact, something you said really referenced to me about a person. See, it's because, like I always try to say, it's not a matter of pointing fingers, but dealing with the facts. It's not a matter of pointing fingers, but dealing with the facts. It's not a matter of a man or a woman thing. It's a people thing. And with what I heard this man said that he came into his wife, when he came into the room and the TV was on and he went to change the channel, and his wife woke up out of her sleep and told him to turn the TV back to the other channel. And I'm just like, and he laughed about it, and I wasn't going to say nothing at the time. I wasn't going to say nothing because I try to be careful not to step on anybody's toes, dealing with people marriages, but he made it, he asked us the question. And when he asked us the question,
I'm sorry, Akeem, bear with me just for a second. No, it's this thing acting up. I'm sorry, Akeem, bear with me just for a second. Okay, sorry about that. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No problem. And when he asked us the question, well, it was all fair game because he asked the question. So I asked him. I said, well, do you think that is good for your relationship? Does that not put a strain on you? Pertaining to is that not fair? That doesn't make any sense, because anytime somebody would wake up out of their sleep and tell you to turn the channel back, that's you're enabling her to behave that way, and especially if you don't stand up to her. It's not a matter of disrespecting her, but stand up to her. Just deal with the facts in hand. Deal with that matter. And it's not a matter of being domineering. It's not a matter of any of those stereotype things that. It's not a matter of any of those It's not a matter of any of those type of things that that stereotype us as black men. Not that really doesn't matter the color, but most relationships, or I would be bold enough to say most relationships do have verbal and abusive,
Emotional.
and emotional, exactly, relationship. But I told him, I said, it's just a matter of you helping her really when you don't enable her to do those things, because what you're doing is you're leading you and her right into a ditch. That's not good. That's really, and like you said, he said, well, you got to do what you got to do to keep the peace. And I said, well, that's really not, that's not shalom. That's really not shalom, because it's a false sense of peace, but it's really not shalom.
Yeah.
And so I tried to communicate with him. You got to finish, because I said, I mean, you asked us the question. He said, well, I'm happy. And I wanted to say, well, really, are you really happy?
You're
but
right.
I didn't go no further because, I could see that he was getting a little bent out of shape and everything like that. But I like to say this, that false saying, or what is cliches. Cliches are very dangerous. I always say that false cliche, happy life, happy wife, is very false, because what you're doing is when you spoil anything, it goes bad. And if it goes bad, it's not good. So it's a void that your wife will never be able to fulfill, and that's when that goes back to Yahuah. When the man is not following Yahuah, and he's not doing what he supposed to be doing as a man, because Yahuah will teach a man how to be a real man. And so that man can then teach, if that woman is willing to receive, he can, show her through scripture and through experience, through a relationship. He can show her to fill that void that she's constantly trying to fill with men, with things, with all these things that really there's no you can't substitute the real thing for anything counterfeit. So that the problem is with us as men and women, we are constantly trying to fill that void. So I wanted to communicate that with brother, but he got too irate before I can I just let it alone, because what he does is and what a lot of men do to try to keep the so-called peace and that happy life, happy wife type of thing, they are trying to fill a void with things and with just doing whatever she wants him to do and all that type of thing. And that's more and it's vice versa. Women go out their way and enable men the same way. So I like to say that it's really all a matter of us wanting it. You really have to want it. And like you said, love is not a mistake. Love is definitely not a mistake. And you really have to work at it. It's something that you have to work at, and you have to want it. You really have to want it.
Indeed.
So I just want to say, shalom.
To for sharing, shalom. Yes, and you're absolutely right. And you talk about fostering and wanting it, and we also have to ask the question: what are we fostering? Are we really fostering love? Are we really fostering a relationship built on love? Or a relationship, building a loving relationship, or are we fostering dysfunction? Because if you live by the idea, like this brother you spoke of, who came to you saying this. Now he used the example of his wife being asleep and him changing the TV channel, and she wakes up and tell him to turn back. Now the truth is she wasn't watching it; she was asleep. But that's being how should I put it? Being domineering, being unhealthily Man, yeah, selfish, possessive, a lot of different things. That speaks a lot. It says a lot. Okay. Now for the man who says he's happy, number one, if he was happy, he wouldn't be going to his neighbor, like we just read earlier, and with sighs, right? In Sirach chapter 25 and verse 16, it says, when a wife is in a bad mood, her expression changes until she looks like an angry bear. Her husband has to go and eat with the neighbors where he can't hold back his bitter sighs. Okay? So he won't say anything. He say something to her, but he knows that it's only but so much he can say without it turning into a big brawl. And so he don't say much. And he tell himself that he's happy, that, this battle ain't worth fighting. I'll just keep the peace. But in reality, he's not truly happy, because if he was truly happy, then he wouldn't be expressing it anywhere else. He would just deal with it, you see. But it bothers him, because that just says that there is more. There are other issues there. There's an issue of control, right? From her perspective, there's an issue of selfishness, and you can think of a few other things, you see. So it implies that there are other things there. Now, I want to read something else from the book of Sirach, chapter 25 again. And I'm going to read from verse 7. It says, I will tell you about 10 kinds of people that I feel fortunate to know, especially fortunate in the case of the 10th. Someone who takes pride in his children. Someone who lives to see his enemies fall. A man fortunate enough to have an understanding wife. An understanding wife. And you can not just limit it to a wife, but to a husband. If you're in a relationship and you're fortunate enough to have somebody that is understanding, that is key. Understanding. Because a lot of people lack understanding. And a lot of times issues come about in a relationship because of a lack of understanding. You see? People fight over stuff that ain't even necessary because of a lack of understanding. Misunderstanding. Somebody says something and misunderstanding causes you to take it the wrong way, and now you have a big old brawl over it. A lack of understanding. So when you are fortunate enough to have an understanding spouse, he says that is something to be admired. It's a beautiful sight. So a man fortunate enough to have an understanding wife. Listen, when you have somebody, when you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, and you have somebody that lacks understanding, again, it creates bitterness in the other person. Okay? And that bitterness, they might not feel comfortable enough to express it, but it's festering. And as long as it continues to fester, it becomes like this deadly cancer that at some point it's going to erupt. And if it's not dealt with and it's allowed to continue on until it erupts, then the end of it ain't going to be good. You see, that's why communication is important. That's why our willingness to listen and to try to put ourselves in the other person's shoe is important. And that's one of the biggest problems with people, period. That we are not willing to put ourselves in the other person's shoe. We're not willing to see it from the other person's perspective. You see. But we got to be willing to see it from the other person's perspective. Now, after we have looked at it from the other person's perspective, it might not necessarily mean that the other person's perspective is right, but why do you look at it from the other person's perspective? You look at it from the other person's perspective so that you can know how to communicate to them from their perspective instead of from your perspective. And oftentimes, if somebody feels, now what that will do is that will validate. It will cause the person, not always, but it could cause the person to feel like, okay, you do value the way I feel. You do value my outlook. It's a part of It's a part of the compromise. It's a part of finding solution to the problem. You see, it will allow the person to kind of maybe lower that big old armor they have up there a little bit. And the only way you can begin to work it out, and the only way you're going to begin to heal, is by lowering those armors, beginning to knock down those walls, you know. So you got to be able to speak to them from their perspective, and that's why you want to look at it from the other person's perspective, not necessarily to uphold that perspective, because the perspective could be wrong. Now, if you look at it from their perspective and find that you are wrong, you've got to be willing to say, you know what, I was really wrong. I didn't all this time, I didn't see what it is that you were trying to show me. I didn't see what it is that you were trying to tell me. But, you know, oftentimes we're too prideful as people, and we want to hold on to what we have declared to be right, no matter how wrong it might be, right? So a man fortunate enough to have an understanding wife. A married couple who are well matched. We're talking about being unequally yoked, right? So even in marriage, we talk about a yoke and what a yoke is. A yoke is an agricultural term. It speaks of two animals being yoked together, being brought together by a yoke. But when a farmer is going to put two animals together, he's not going to put two animals that's mismatched together. Two animals that are on two different levels. He's not going to put a cow and a horse together, so on and so forth. So in marriage, we got to be within a certain range of each other. You see, if we're not, it can't work. If not, somebody is going to be suffering silently. Somebody is going to be living in misery silently. You see what I'm saying? You see, so we got to be on some kind of plane together. We got to be on the same page. We ain't got to be in the same exact line, but we at least got to be on the same page. You see? And what's going to get us in the same line is our willingness to listen to each other and to really caringly and lovingly work at the issues for the benefit of each other and for the benefit of our family, for the benefit of our children. Right? So again, if that can't happen, what the scriptures tells us is better to separate. Be divided. That's what he tells us. If you can't come to true agreement, then again, it's going to take compromise. But if the gaps are so big that you can't find compromise, you can't be together. You're only going to wear each other out. You're going to be miserable, and it's just not going to end well. You see? So now, a person who doesn't have to work, okay, so he says, a married couple who are well matched. A person who, let me say what this is about again. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 25, I'm reading from verse 7 on. I will tell you about 10 kinds of people that I feel fortunate to know, especially fortunate in the case of the 10th. Someone who takes pride in his children, someone who lives to see his enemy fall, a man fortunate enough to have an understanding wife, a married couple who are well matched, a person who never speaks sinfully, a person who doesn't have to work for someone less competent than himself, a person who doesn't have to work for someone less competent than himself. You know, a whole lot of us are working for people less competent than us. You know, yesterday I was having a conversation at work. They were talking about the Donald Trump tax cuts, and they were praising it. And they were talking from the perspective, you know, one of the guys, these are leaders at the job. I was talking to my boss and another person second in line to the boss. So these are leaders at the job. So they were talking about the tax cuts. They were talking favorably about it. Now, the person that's second in line, he's second in line to the boss. This is a guy that I've been at the job for 4 years. And for the first 2 years, I would say good morning to that man. Good afternoon. I would speak to him. He would never respond to me. He would never answer me. Okay, never did. A white man, never. I speak to him, he never answers. And I tell people that guy got a problem. So, nonetheless, now I was working in logistics, and I was leading logistics, and so after being there about 2 years, and him seeing the positive changes that I brought to the logistics department because I was leading logistics, he began to communicate with me a little bit more, especially through emails, right? And when certain things needed to be done, he would send me emails, and we would communicate through emails. And from there, he would begin to respond to me when I say good morning to him or whatever. Okay? But yesterday was the first time that he ever really had any lasting conversation with me. And so they were talking about the Donald Trump tax cuts and stuff like that. Him and the site leader and myself, I was in the midst of them, and they brought up the conversation. But he's speaking about it from the perspective of, he's saying, yeah, somebody needed to, reverse this thing. Obama taking money from people who worked hard all their lives to give it to the poor, to give it to other people who aren't trying, he said. So, but basically what it did was, it gave me an opportunity, him saying these things gave me an opportunity to bring out a different perspective. And so I started off in response to his statement by saying, okay, consider this. I said now the Donald Trump tax cuts, they'll work if these businesses, if these corporations, in taking these tax cuts, if they then take the money that they save and then turn it into higher income for people and truly creating more business and opportunities for people. But historically, that's not, and this is what I'm saying to them, historically, that's not what we have seen done with tax cuts. Okay? What we have seen done historically is that the companies take the tax cuts, and then what they do is they just give bigger bonuses to the CEOs. But the regular people working for them don't see the benefit of it. Okay? I said, now my son works for McDonald's, and when my son got the job working for McDonald's, I did a little bit of research because I was curious. And when I looked it up, what I found out was that it would take my son getting paid $8.53 an hour. It would take him working 40 hours a week for one full quarter. It would take him working 40 hours a week for one quarter to make what the CEO of McDonald's make in just 1 hour. He would have to work for one full quarter, 40 hours a week, to make what the CEO makes in 1 hour. And I said, no, that's the issue. That's the problem. The problem is that it's not that there isn't enough money to go around. The problem is that the people at the top, there is a huge disparity between the people at the top and the people actually doing the work. So when I make that point, our site leader, my boss, says, well, yeah, that is true. That's a valid point. And so he said the real problem, the real issue there is unfairness, that it could do better with paying people a better wage. But we had this we were having this whole conversation about this. So in what I was trying to do was basically, but what my boss said was, he said, they make the excuse that these people at the top, that only they can do what they do. And he was saying that's not true. It's really not true. So there's a whole lot of people below them that can do what they do, but that's the reason they give. So, basically, I just say that to say what we just read here. It says here, so it says here, a person, he says, He feels fortunate to know a person who doesn't have to work for someone less competent than himself. And a lot of us are working for people less competent than us, you see. That's the only reason why I went to that story yesterday. Now, I'm reading from the book of Sirach, chapter 25, and I'm now in verse 9. Aki, so someone fortunate enough to have a real friend, a person that people are happy to listen to, and the really great one, someone who is wise. But the greatest one of all is the person who fears Yahuah. Such a person has no equal, because the fear of Yahuah is the most important thing in the world. So my point here, why I went to that nonetheless, why I went to that text, is it's talking about a man who is fortunate enough to have an understanding wife, and a married couple who are well matched. You see. So you know, we understanding is key to resolving our issues. It really is. We have to, and that's something that we got to make ourselves do, because we tend to be family, to be honest, we tend to be quite one-sided. We like our ideas, you see, and we tend to like to stick to them, and when challenged we tend to want to defend them even more. But that's where we have to make ourselves, because humility doesn't come naturally, family. We are carnal people, and humility doesn't come naturally. What comes naturally to us who are vile and wicked, because we are, it's our nature. What comes naturally is to fight, you see, is to have a butt for everything. That's what comes naturally to us. And so, but that's where we got to that's where we got to work to change that, you see, and to be willing to listen. And you know what else comes naturally to us? What else comes naturally to us is our ability not to see our own flaws, not to see what we're doing wrong. And you know what? Sometimes people can be telling it to us. Sometimes they're saying it to us, but we're not hearing them at all. You see what I'm saying? And that's because we're not willing to listen either, because we don't want to hear what we don't want to hear. We only want to hear. We have selective hearing. You see what I'm saying? And so, you know, all of that, it begins with humility. It begins with understanding. It begins with a willingness to put ourselves in the other person's shoe, you see, and it begins with the willingness to change, you see. But you listen, just simply appeasing somebody, trying to keep them happy, doesn't make you happy. If that's the case, issues have to be resolved. If they're not resolved, there's always going to be misery, you see. So we just got to be committed to resolving whatever the issue is. And to resolve the issue, we've got to be understanding, we've got to be humble, we've got to be willing to be corrected, to be taught. We've also got to be willing to examine ourselves, you see, and we've got to be willing to look at it from the other person's perspective, put ourselves in their shoes. All right. Any other questions or comments? Let me go to Akut Shar. Please go ahead, Akut.
Can I be heard?
Oh, yes, Aki. Shalom.
Shalom, Aki. Wonderful, wonderful lesson. It just, the scripture just solidified the baraka that I have with my beautiful wife.
Oh, praise Yahuah.
all the attributes that scripture spoke of, it's exemplified with my better half. But my question, she's hitting me too, Aki.
I know she don't like
my question, Aki, is I've always been under the impression, though, that we as set-apart people could not attend funerals and could not attend weddings. Mm-hmm. Now, you're indicating that we use our wisdom. I'll release the mic, but I just want to, because I'm a little confused.
Okay, Tuda, Aki, Tuda, and for bringing up that question again. So yes, we, not that we can't, but use wisdom in that situation. And I believe that when I say use wisdom, I think we all understand what I'm saying, right? There are some There's some situations, some circumstances, you know that, okay, there's nothing good in it. Okay, so, you know, Cousin Ray and them invite me to their party. I know Ray and them is rah-rah. So, you know, given what I know about Ray and them, I ain't gonna go. But then I have another cousin, not serving Yahuah, but they're not rah-rah like Ray, you know. So, you know, given what I know about them, they're not serving Yahuah, but at the same time, I know that, you know, the importance of being present, right? And sometimes it's not that I have to be there to preach to them, for words to come out of my mouth, but also it's just to show that, you know what, I do love you. Because sometimes we say, it's easy for us to say, you know, yeah, we tell somebody we love them, but then we don't want to be around them. And that person is looking like, well, what kind of love do you have for me? You know, is it, do you only love me if you can preach to me? Do you only love me if, because they might feel like you're talking down to them, that you, when you can talk down to me, you see? So it's important not to put ourselves so high that people perceive us as being, you know, better or whatever the case is. But we gotta be, we gotta use wisdom, and we gotta be, and listen, if you're trying to reach people, you can't then cut yourself off from people, because then you ain't reaching nobody.
Okay. You ready?
Yes, go ahead, Akut.
What's that got to do with okay. In Torah, it speaks about how they didn't have a funeral. What they do, they buried, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, they buried the person, and they, of course, they mourned for their 7 days, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And then at these funerals, they're going to show the body. I mean, me personally, I'm not going to them, but my husband probably, he will, I guess. But
well, I'm going to use wisdom. But it's just, you know, a key like anything else, you know, they're going to talk about the G-O-D, they're going to talk about the Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only part that, needless to say, I would have to shut out.
Right.
But,
yeah, so, and you know, I'd say, Akut, even in Torah, funeral was a ceremony, right? But of course, according, done in Yahuwah's way, who receives esteem is Yahuwah. Again, your purpose in going is not, you're not going there to give esteem to anything, but at the same time, you're going there to show support for people that you genuinely do care about. But again, too, it's not that every funeral that come along or every event that come along you're going to go to. So I believe it's really a matter of using wisdom, because again, if I'll tell it to you like this: if you're trying to reach a people, okay, let's say you have a sister and your sister dies, but you have other sisters, nieces and nephews, uncles and aunts, people that you really want to reach out to. Your sister dies, but you say, you know what, I'm serving Yahuwah, and I can't go to this burial because they're not serving Yahuwah, and you know, they're giving esteem to God, whatever that the Lord, whatever they're doing. I can't go to this funeral. But at the same time, sometime in the future, I'd like to show myself friendly. Now, you show up at their house at some other time, they're really going to look at you like, what are you doing here? And that's just the reality, you know. So, again, I'll talk about those situations with Yahusha when he went to certain places, and even in certain people's houses, there were people who criticized him for going there. How can you go eat with that one? And how can you go under that person's roof? You know, they're not set apart, you see. So but at the same time, these are the people. He said what he said. He said, I didn't come for the living, you see.
And the key.
Yes, Aki.
And sometimes we forget that Yahuwah deals with the intent of our heart.
Indeed. Indeed. You see? And so we're not after the living, we're after the dead. Where's the dead at? You see what I'm saying? They're not in the assembly. They're everywhere else but here. You know, so we just have to use wisdom. I believe truly we have to use wisdom. And by cutting ourselves off, we cut ourselves off, you see. And we cut other people off. So I believe it's really a matter of using wisdom.
Okay, I agree with that wisdom, Key. I mean, and I deal with my relatives right now while they're living. You know, however, I don't deal with them like I would deal with, my brethren in the word.
Hold on, there's a mic open. Give me 1 second. Okay. Oops, sorry. Let me try to get this mic. Okay, go ahead. A couple mics open. Bear with me just for a sec. Go ahead, Akut.
Okay. So I don't deal with my family like I would those call themselves in the way, but I still deal with my relatives, not to the extent where I am, we're laughing I do laugh at one of my brothers, but where I'm going to visit all the time, and where I'm going to these, what do you call, family get-togethers and all that, because I know my family, and I know what they do and how they act, and they don't want to hear nothing, because I've tried with most of my family. They don't want to hear it, they don't want to know it. But so, however, I still sort of deal with them, while you're living. And so, I would just, like you said, I'm just going to use wisdom. I'll do that.
Indeed. Yeah, and I agree. And I believe we are the same way too, Akut. But, sometimes, people, they really, and especially when death comes around, people get real sensitive. Yeah. And they pay attention. And they look like, okay, so, and again, there are instances where you let the dead bury their dead, but there are instances where you can't be just so cut and dry, you see. Again,
that's going to have a lasting impact.
Yeah,
if you don't show up,
because who you're there for is the living. You're not there for the dead. The one who's dead who knows nothing. So if you're thinking you're going to support the dead, then you're already wrong in your thinking. The dead absolutely knows nothing, so,
and you ain't gotta go to the wake. That's where they go cut up.
So so it's just one of those things we have to use wisdom. Let me go to Akiki. Shalom, Aki.
Shalom, Aki.
Shalom to you, Aki.
I just want to piggyback off of Aki, Rob, and the Coop Shark, because I already went through that. I believe I said it a few months ago, but it's worth repeating. Okay, so my mom died, right? And when my mom died, so I had to fly back to Delaware, so I went back to Delaware, with my family and all that. So, I went to the funeral. Now, I knew that the so-called bishop was going to be talking about Jesus and the other person, right?
Yeah.
So I already knew that because I grew up in, Christianity, so I already knew what the church, I knew what he was going to say. So I already prepared myself for that. I said, okay, I know the reason why I'm coming. And that's it. So, I went, paid my respect or whatever you want to call it. So, but afterwards, to me, was the best time, because after the funeral was over, we went to my brother's house, and that's when I told them that we are the chosen people. And I went through the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, through the 15th through the 68th verse, and they all listened. Now, have they all turned to Yahuah? No, but they all listen with no problems. So I just think, if you go, but you're not going there to praise Baal, right? And that's that. And you can share the word with your brothers and sisters, so be it. I don't think it's something to get yourself all. Well, I better use a different terminology. I don't think it's something we should just get ourselves wrapped up about. It's just like, hey, okay, I'm going. I'm going. I know where I'm going. I know what they're going to say, but I'm not going to pay respect to a false idol. You know, because I know this. I mean, because if someone, mom, brother, sister, someone that's close to you, whether they're a believer or not, you're going to the funeral.
Yeah.
So if you know that you're going, you know the reason why you're going.
Right.
You know, you just let that be that.
Yes. Indeed.
Ta-da, Rabbi.
Ta-da for sharing, and
You know,
I believe that's important, an important point.
you know, I had to go to my cousin's funeral. It's not a matter of are you gonna go. You know, I came late. It was really sad. She died unexpectedly. She had 2 little girls, 9 and 11 years old. And you know what? I honestly believe, because they didn't call me Cousin Kim, they called me Aunt Kim, and my daughter called, you know, their mom Aunt Mill. You know, that it wasn't their aunt, but we was just that close growing up. And then our daughters, you know, they're not very close, but they, you know, from time to time spend time with one another. And to them, it's going to matter to those babies that I showed up, and that, you know, their mom, the closest thing to their mom, aside from their aunt and their grandmom, was there. You know what I mean? Somebody that was dear to their mom was there, you know. And my little cousins, they're going to need me. But, you know, had I not came and they see me later, it would have been like I really didn't care about them or about their mom. That's how them little girls going to see it. So, you know, I'm grateful that I was able to go, and I'm grateful that Yahuah gave me strength to stand and represent him while I was there. You know, he said, let your good works be known, and then he will give, you know, he will receive the esteem. He will receive the praise, you know, because sometimes it's not for me to have a word for you, you know. But if I did, that's a seed sown for the time that Yahuah thinks that, you know what I mean, it's for you to come into the fold. Not for me. I don't determine. You know, so, but if we, you know, sticking our heads in the sand like, you know, no, you don't look like you need a word, then, you know, how can you be used? But, you know, you got to be strong too. You know, you can't just be going around people thinking, you know, it ends with me. And then you wind up talking the way they talk and eating that pork, and, you know, you can't do that, you know. So if you don't feel like you're strong enough or you could be that witness, don't go. You know, but it really ain't about, for me, it was about my little cousins, you know, so.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Aki.
I also wanted to add, you know, that when Yahusha tried to witness to his family, I believe it was something like this. He tried to witness to his family, they didn't receive him because they knew him.
Yeah.
He grew up with him, so it's kind of hard. It was harder for them to receive him because they seen him as little Yahusha. So, so sometimes that, you know, we get that type of reaction from our family because, you know, they don't take us seriously. So sometimes it has to come from somebody else. And also, we don't have to hit somebody else top of the head with scripture.
Yes.
You know, when we you know, using wisdom, dealing with our family, and when they, you know, sometimes it takes a little time and patience for them to see how you walk and how serious you are about your walk. And then also, as they see how patient you are with them, and that you can actually have a rapport with them still, have a rapport with them, that takes wisdom, certain wisdom that, you know, Scripture talks about being settled as a serpent and gentle as a dove. Well, you know, sometimes we forget to exercise that as well. Sometimes we think that we have to always talk about Scripture, but if we make ourselves available, not doing it now, a funeral, if you have the intent, and purpose, if you're doing something for a purpose, Scripture tells us in all things, give reference to Yahuah in all things that we do. So if we are going to a funeral, if we're going to a funeral I'm looking for an opportunity to witness to just one. If it's just one person, it might not even be a family member. It might be somebody that knew the family member, that knew the family, that you can actually witness to. You are in the midst of, like you said, souls. I believe Scripture also talks about a wise man with souls. So if you are in the midst of people, it gives you the opportunity. So it's all about, I believe, it's all about your purpose of what you're doing, what you're doing. You don't get so caught up, and of course you're going to be hurt if it's a close love or whatever. But if you know this one is lost probably forever because you don't know what happened, it should even motivate you that much more to go to maybe witness to whoever that you have opportunity to witness to. So it's just like what Keith said, Keith, you know, not get too wrapped up about the things that, you know, that we're probably missing the big picture, sometimes our lack of understanding of scripture, we miss the big picture of what even Yahusha did, pertaining to how he met people or where he actually went to, because he was moving for purpose. He probably was in the midst of all foul things, but because of what he was doing and how he was doing it, many people were trying to reach out to people in the midst of all that foulness. That was the purpose. That was the purpose. So so even with Yahusha doing what he did, trying to meet people, trying to reach out to his own family, sometimes we forget that, you know, sometimes because it's coming from people that we pretty much grew up, it's coming from a person that you grew up with, it's kind of hard to receive. And so just wanted to add that.
Indeed. And, you know, I went and I spoke, and her cousin's, her kid's father, he knows who the true people are. They had separated. And, you know, he's what they call a black Hebrew Israelite, right? And he was there. And, you know, the black Hebrew Israelites, they still use Jesus and God and so on. And him and I, we used to study together. He used to come to the house, and we would have studies together. And but you know, he was really into the black Hebrew Israelite thing, and he had went back to studying with them. But when I went, and I didn't know that I would end up speaking, but yeah. But when I got through at the end, he came to me. He said, "Man, he said, I need your number because I gotta come back over because we need to start studying together again, you know." And since then, he has called me. You know, he's serious about us getting together to study. You know, it's amazing. He's been quote unquote black Hebrew Israelite for a lot of years now, but at the same time, it's been there hasn't been any growth, you know, as far as knowledge and certain things. But as a result of hearing me there, he wants to, you know, he wants us to get together so we can study, you know. And so even if it was one, but it didn't just speak to one, spoke to others. And what I did, I took that opportunity to tell the living that a lot of what we think we know, we don't know, because we have been lied to, you know. And so that's a message that I tried to
proclaim Yahuah's name.
That I tried to convey to them.
Absolutely.
You know, so,
Absolutely.
I know they had to be thinking like, who is that? Who you keep saying hello, Who is that?
Yeah. So you know that's how that went. But again, I believe that we have to use wisdom in situation like that, and we cut people off by cutting ourselves off, and cut ourselves off by cutting people off, you know.
Now, King, don't get it twisted, because, you know, some things are blatant, like Christmas cards.
Yes,
you know, Easter parties. Some things are just like, I know, bro. You know, and like you said, sometimes, you know, when it's a family gathering, I've when a family gathering was just a plain cookout.
Mm-hmm.
I might not like music, so we would have opportunities, but again, pertaining to, I believe, a funeral, when people are losing, I mean, people are, really thinking, and you have a preacher, that's telling the people, further leading them astray, that this is happening in this afterlife, and this, that, and the third. So that should motivate you to just sit, even if and sometimes you will might actually sit you down. So it is definitely a connection that you have to have with Yahuah. I believe also that he will move you to do certain things, and even if it pertains to funerals. So he may move you to go to that funeral for whatever reason. But if we are so bent on our own thing, so to speak, we can miss out on that opportunity.
What's interesting about that funeral, there was no pastor.
It was no,
Wow.
because they're Jehovah Witnesses, so they're not going to have a pastor per se. And because she wasn't baptized into it, she was not necessarily looked at as being one of the. I don't know how that goes. It's kind of weird to me.
Well, they're basically nobody from the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah.
No pastor from the Kingdom Hall. I don't know if they call themselves pastor or what they call themselves, but nobody would
I guess speak over her. I don't know how that goes.
Lead the funeral, because you have to be quote unquote baptized in the Kingdom Hall. They consider themselves to be Jehovah Witnesses, but she wasn't baptized in the Kingdom Hall.
I will say this though. I don't know. That guy wasn't a pastor. He was someone who worked at the
Kingdom Hall.
No. At the funeral home, and he called you to the back. What did he tell you?
I
don't know
yeah.
if you know this, but you called the preacher.
Yeah. The guy that worked at the funeral home, older man. So when I got through, he said, "Now I heard you speak, and I thought that you knew beforehand that this is something you were going to do, but I don't know if you know this, but you're called to be a pastor," he said. So I say, well, Yahuah, is what I said.
He thought about it. And what's that to say there, son? And then another young man said, now this will probably have no denomination at all. I sat and I listened to you, and I want you to know that I'm going to try to change.
Yeah.
Now that one was the most heartfelt to me, because here you have somebody out of the blue that is just there for the funeral in tears, and like Keith Damon said, at that moment, people, they broken, especially to something they didn't expect. What is he doing?
All right. Well, family, if there are no other comments or questions, we're going to wrap up today. Once again, it is my hope that Yahuwah's word has been a barakah to you. Leading up to this week, it felt like I haven't seen the Mashbaka in a long time. It was 2 weeks ago. So, nonetheless, we're through the book of Proverbs, Mashali. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was to in the coming weeks, we won't be together next weekend, the following, Yahuwah willing, but in the coming weeks I'd like to take some time for us to go over scriptures dealing with Yahuwah's attributes, looking at different attributes of Yahuwah and how his attributes are presented in the scriptures. So that's something that I look forward to doing in the coming weeks, Yahuwah willing. All right, Mashbaka, well, we're going to prepare to close out. Praise Father Akut. Ki Yaram Yahu. Shalom to you also, Ki and Akut Yolanda. Wonderful to see you, Mashbaka. And Akut Yolanda, could you could you I don't, if you're able to give me a call at some point. I lost your number. I wanted to call you guys. If you could give me a call or send me an email when you can, when you have a chance, so with your number, so I can call you. And Yahuah willing, I will be talking to you soon, family. Let's okay, great. Praise Yahuah. Praise Yahuah Kudamuna. Well, we're going to prepare to close out, family. Hallelujah. Abba Yahuah, we thank and praise you once again for this time. Praise you for this fellowship. We praise you for bringing us together. We praise you for your word. May you continue to barak us, lead us. Abba, teach us. Instruct us according to your way. Strengthen us, I pray, Yahuah. Endow us with your wisdom, with your power. Hallelujah. And we pray, Father, that you would barak our families, barak our relationships, barak our children, barak our hearts and our minds, our bodies. Barak our being, Yahuah. And we pray that we would give you esteem in all that we say and all that we do, that we would seek for you with our whole heart continually, that you would make yourself known to us like never before, Yahuah. Cleanse us, continue to cleanse us, and to make us more and more like you. Do this, we pray, in your great name. I pray that you would be with us throughout this week, keep us safe as we travel, as we move about, Father. Pray that your protection would be upon us. In Yahuwah's name. Amen. Hallelujah. Family, may Yahuah barak you and keep you. May Yahuah cause his face to shine upon you and show favor unto you. May Yahuah lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. May the name of Yahuah be upon you. Allahu Yahuah. Love you all, mashbaka, and Yahuah willing, I will see each other soon. And shalom, family. I'm going, this thing has really been acting up. I don't know if I can end with the intro. It's been acting up. There we go. Family.